What's up, everyone? Welcome to GameFace, episode 336, take 2. We tried to do this show yesterday, and we got about 30 minutes into the episode, and the power went out, and we ended up losing the files altogether. So here we are for take 2 of GameFace, episode 336, and alongside me is my co-host, Matt Kyle.
This has all happened before, and it will all happen again.
I hope not. Hopefully the power stays on today. You did say it went out again, once it came back on.
Went out again around 9:30 last night, and then came back after 3 minutes.
Okay.
And nothing since then. I have not heard what the deal was when it happened. When I called the power company, and the alerts said that it was going to be till 4 p.m.
Yeah.
But it came back probably 40 minutes later.
Yeah, and I had already driven all the way across the city, and I looked in my side mirror at the way back to your house, and it was just gridlock. And I was like, I'm not going back. I was also nervous that I'd drive all the way back, and then the same thing would happen again. So I wanted to give us a little bit of a buffer zone, overnight, to make sure that the electricity was good here. And I think it is. I think we're going to be okay.
We'll see.
One thing, for those of you who showed up yesterday, we are going to have to do the first half hour of the show over again because, again, when the power goes out, there's no way to save the file. So if it crashes, we can get, there's a kind of a crappy file we can use to save the show. If the power just goes out, there's nothing we can do. The files are completely borked. So we'd have to start the show over again. We'll have to do the housekeeping again. Hopefully you guys understand. Although I would probably argue that probably not going to be as many people on the stream today. This is the earliest we have ever done GameFace. Now, obviously, we've been in here in various places covering E3. I think the earliest we've done a show is 8:30 or something like that. But GameFace, we've never done it at 11 a.m. So I totally get it. People are used to showing up on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific. So I'm not expecting a big crowd today on the live stream, but I can already see there's a bunch of you in there, which is awesome. So thank you guys for sticking with us to show up for the re-recording of GameFace 336. A couple housekeeping things before we get going. I want to thank everybody who asked great questions for Ask Shane Anything. Again, if you want to participate in that, you need to pledge at $7 or more per month at patreon.com/sifted. Everybody gets to watch the actual show. And when I left here last night, I went home and I just started cutting an episode of Ask Shane Anything, which is up right now. So even though the show was canceled yesterday, I drove back to my place and just went right back after it and did an episode of Ask Shane Anything, which is live for our patrons right now. Enjoy that if you can, or maybe you already have. Other housekeeping. Tomorrow, we'll start asking for questions for the next round of Pactor Factor. You can get that at usual places. If you're a regular on sifted.net, you won't be able to miss it. If you follow us on Twitter at Sifted Games, you won't be able to miss it. If you're someone on YouTube, and Matt, I mentioned this again yesterday, a lot of people on YouTube ask us questions in the comments of episodes. Don't do that. You can, but your questions aren't going to get in the show. We specifically ask for questions on YouTube on our community tab. So if you go to youtube.com/siftedgames, there's a little community tab there. If you click on that, that's where we ask for questions. So do all that stuff on YouTube, hit all the bells and the notifications and subscribe and all that crap. That's how you'll know when it's time to ask for questions. And again, tomorrow, Friday, we're going to start asking for questions again. So get those in when you can. Lots of stuff going on. No shortage of things to ask the Packmaster for the next round of episodes.
Packmaster.
That's the first time I've ever called him that. Someone's asking us about your PC, Matt. Don Lionheart.
That's fine.
Does anyone know what 4090 your PC has in it? Do you know what aftermarket brand it was?
I can look.
Okay.
I didn't make it myself. So
your brother-in-law built it for you?
My brother-in-law built it.
Yeah, Matt didn't actually build it. It was an awesome Christmas gift from someone in his family who builds rigs and actually was really good at tracking down GPUs during the pandemic and everything.
It is an Asus.
Asus. Okay. We have an Asus monitor. We use a lot of Asus stuff. I believe in Asus. I think they're a good brand. Some people in Europe are like, this is actually perfect. It's 9 p.m. in Europe right now. So it's actually working out better for some of you guys. So maybe we'll get more people from Europe and less people from the U.S. Most people in the U.S., if they are able to watch a stream while they're working, they usually can't do that until the afternoon after they've got unburied from email and stuff like that. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if our live numbers are a little bit lower. But what really matters is we have a great archive for our patrons. So let's see. Lots of small stories this week, Matt, that aren't really worthy of an entire topic on GameFace, but worth discussing nevertheless. One of the big ones, at least for me, and I definitely think for you, is that Respawn is working on a Star Wars first-person shooter that is inspired by Jedi Knight and Star Wars Dark Forces. And it's also not being developed on Frostbite. It is being developed in Unreal Engine, just like Respawn's other Star Wars games. So a lot of the issues that we've had with games like Battlefront and Battlefield in the past, maybe we don't have to worry about those, Matt. What do you think?
No, I mean, Respawn has used Unreal for all their Star Wars games so far. So it's not surprising. We'll see. The Jedi Knight games are not my favorite things in the world. In fact, I mean, I guess the first Jedi Knight is Dark Forces 1 and Jedi Knight are pretty good.
Dark Forces, for those of you who don't know, it's basically like a Doom clone.
It was Star Wars Doom.
Yeah.
Although I believe it was the first-person shooter to let you look up.
Really?
I think it was the first one to let you look up and down.
Really? Interesting.
It still had basically auto-targeting that Doom had for anything above your level if you didn't care about it. But, like, you could actually look up and down, which I remember was a crazy... I remember installing that on my friend's computer, and we were like, this thing is 50 megabytes. No game could ever be bigger than 50 megabytes. That's ridiculous. It was half his hard drive.
Oh, man. That's hilarious.
But... I like those, and then I know Jedi Outcast is like held up as some kind of paragon of Star Wars. I think that game sucks. It's just find the key, hunt the switch shit. I don't understand why people love this lightsaber combat in those Raven games so much, because it's just garbage.
Yeah, I mean, most lightsaber combat was garbage.
It's just swinging. It's like you know, and like I like the multiplayer I get, like people like running around a lightsaber, but like it doesn't resemble the fighting in the movies in any way. It's a terrible interpretation of lightsaber combat. The best lightsaber combat in the history of video games, and it's not even close because there is no competition, is Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
seriously,
there's not even
there's
even
no
remotely
competition. It's always been bad.
Yeah.
So
I hope it's more in the vein of like, we're going to do this story that involves all this cool stuff in the Star Wars universe, and not like we're going to make a really broken melee system that doesn't resemble anything. And considering they already made a good melee system, or certainly one that will probably be a great melee system once it's refined in the sequel.
Yeah,
I trust them on that. Or if you could, I mean, I would love to see
You're rocking the Respawn shirt today, actually. Yeah, I just noticed that.
That was not intentional. That was just cleaning on top.
Yeah,
but like
cleaning on top.
I would love to see Republic Commando 2 or Republic Commando redo, or some kind of thing dealing with that would be cool. There's a lot of stuff you could do that would be interesting.
Don't forget too that these are the developers that created Call of Duty.
Yeah.
They basically created the modern first-person shooter. A lot of the figureheads at Respawn are responsible for that. So I have high hopes that this game could turn out to be something really awesome.
Or maybe it's just Battlefront 3.
Even if that's made by Respawn.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see someone take a shot at that isn't DICE, because they... Not that I dislike the Battlefronts, but I think it's time for some new ideas.
And the funny part is, the last couple Battlefronts have actually been better than Battlefield.
That's true.
Think about that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Although, you know what, I went back to the original Battlefront 2 a while ago and played like the Galaxy campaign.
All the way back.
Yeah, but you know what I love about that game is it has that Conquer the Galaxy campaign where you like pick your planet and fight a battle, and you have to kind of defend the planet.
I
love that stuff.
It's great.
I mentioned that in what was it? Company Heroes 3, one of my things I miss is like the Warhammer games had that campaign where you take over a map. I love that Rise of Nations had that. You could take over, like, here's the world, and like you kind of play a little turn-based strategy game before you go in and play and the real-time strategy game kind of determines how well you're doing in the turn-based strategy game. I think that's a cool thing to do, and I like what Battlefront 2 did that way. I remember that was one of the most requested features for DICE's Battlefronts, and it just never happened because they barely got the game finished, but like they were too busy bilking us out of microtransaction money, and then learning a very hard lesson.
One of the early red flags of the microtransaction trend.
Yeah, that was really the first
eye-opener.
The death knell on that. In the same way, also the game as a service thing.
Yeah, like it was a bit of like a.
That was the start of the decline.
People were like, "Wait a minute." Like,
yeah, I mean, it was when literally the head of Disney was, "Wait a minute, what are you doing to our IP? We are about to launch like another movie here."
Yeah,
and you're fucking it up.
Being on our IP, yeah, it's bad. So anyway, that's something to look forward to, although that game's probably not coming until 2027, 2028.
No, that's clearly a long way out.
It's a long ways away. Yep.
But luckily, we got a Respawn Star Wars game in like 3 weeks.
Yep.
So.
Yep. More housekeeping. Leslie Benzies, who was one of the 3 heads of Rockstar North, the studio that created the Grand Theft Auto games, he left. In fact, the break was not sanctimonious. There was some friction between Leslie Benzies and the Housers, who have also consequently
sanctimonious would be bad.
Right, oh, right, yeah. So. Yeah, they were not on good terms when they left.
It was not a mutual
parting of the minds. Yeah, so he has started his own studio, and his first game is a game called Everywhere. We got an initial trailer for it not that long ago, and now they've released a brand new trailer for what they're calling the first real single-player release inside Everywhere, which is a game called Mind's Eye. And we've learned a lot more about Everywhere as well in this process, and as it turns out, Everywhere is Roblox for adults. It is an open-world platform that they are going to build single-player campaigns inside of. Kind of like what they're doing with Grand Theft Auto Online right now, which, by the way, was all Leslie Benzies' thinking. He is the one who has created and shepherded GTA Online into unbound success. It has been undoubtedly one of the most financially successful ongoing games or games as a service, Grand Theft Auto Online. And that was all Leslie. However, Matt, I really think he may have missed the mark here with this game.
It feels like you can smell what year this was greenlit in or invested in.
Yeah.
You know, like it feels like an idea that it was something you'd pitch back when people thought that Facebook Meta was going to be a thing. Mm-hmm. It's more of the metaverse idea, and like when you describe what this is, it sounds to me, I'm like, why don't you just make a game?
Yeah. Well, the bad news is that the game that they're making, Mind's Eye, they had a press event for it, and the press was not very kind to it at all. Mm-hmm. They said that it felt half-baked. The controls felt rough. They said the best way to describe it is it felt like it was made for hyper-casuals, which maybe that is the right... I don't know if they're doing it the right way, but maybe that's the right angle to take for a game like this.
I don't know. It feels like fishing for like a mega hit.
Yeah.
It feels like, we want this thing to kind of catch fire with casuals and become the next Fortnite thing. Like that seems to be the boardroom idea for a lot of these things. And like you just can't force that. Also, like it's not a new idea. Like so it would have to be all based on execution, making it better, which doesn't always guarantee success. Mm-hmm. And from the previews, it doesn't sound like the execution is there.
We only got a 15-second trailer for the campaign. And they also said that the campaign is going to be an episodic single-player game.
And that exactly, like, what year is it?
Right, again, a bad idea. It's going to be an episodic game, and each episode is going to be entirely different, like different genres even. So when you drive around the open world, there are cars, there are guns. It's very GTA Online-ish. As you saw in that 15-second trailer that we showed like 5 times straight, there's GTA stuff in there. There's a scene of the guy shooting out the car window. I mean, they're trying to convince you that this is like the new open world Grand Theft Auto, basically.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing right now it's not working, I guess. The messaging is not lining up with what I'm seeing, I guess is the best way to put it. So it's supposed to come out in beta on PC sometime this year with consoles to follow after that. So we'll probably hear more about the game pretty soon if they're going to release it out for people to play. But Matt, my anticipation for this game has just kind of hit rock bottom.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable forgetting about it again until we have to mention it again.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the latest update.
I mean, I remember that little trailer with all those things in the logo, but like I haven't thought of it since.
Yeah. There's other weird stuff about it too. It's like there's like zones that you go to. There's like a lava zone and a forest zone, and like
it sounds like PlayStation Home.
Yeah,
in a way.
You have to go to like specific places to like race, and then another specific place to do like multiplayer gunfights. Yeah. Like it's just weird.
You mentioned Star Citizen in conjunction with it at one point, and it's like And like it's not a bad comparison because it's also Star Citizen is also in love with the idea of like we want you to travel to get to the game, and I'm like, why do I have to go different places why can't I just get in my ship? Why can't I just get in my car? Why can't I just race when I want to race? Why can't I just shoot when I want to shoot? What is that? Like, do you think I have that kind of time? Like
they're asking a lot of the player for this game,
yeah,
and they're asking older people to build stuff. That's the other thing. It is like Roblox, where you can go in and there's a whole tool set that you can use to build stuff. Adults don't care about that crap. No. They just don't. Adults don't build stuff in video games. They build stuff in the garage. Like, that's just not how adults operate. Kids like Minecraft. Kids love games where you build stuff. Kids love Fortnite, the building in Fortnite. Adults generally have not really resonated with that type of gameplay.
No, and like the people who do have the time or the interest in building things are going to build things legitimately in real programming languages in real life. I mean, because
they're free now. I'd rather learn how to use Unreal than learn how to build something in some video game.
I mean, there will definitely be people who get in, just like the people who gotten into it with Dreams or whatever and that kind of thing. But I don't know if that's going to be enough people and enough output to warrant having built this whole thing for it,
Yep. So I don't think it's looking good, but we'll see. We should learn a lot more very soon. Another game, well, actually, the biggest game that was announced this week, probably, is the first game in a partnership between Lego and 2K. If you guys remember, when we first got the announcement, it was they're going to be making Lego sports games. And I was like, I don't know if like Lego works well with sports because of the way they animate and things like that. I was a little concerned about it. It turns out the first game actually really isn't a sports game. It is an open world kart racing game.
That's a motorsports
called
game.
Lego 2K Drive. I guess, does it count as like a motorsport game if it's like a karting game?
I mean, it's taken enough from Forza Horizon that I think you can say that.
Yeah, its open world design is like Forza Horizon, but the actual gameplay itself is more akin to a Mario Kart, or I would argue Diddy Kong Racing, because this is set in an open world, and Diddy Kong Racing was kind of the precursor to that for N64. It wasn't in an open world per se. It was set in a gigantic hub, and you had to physically drive to the location of each race and enter the race. And that's kind of how this works. You can play cooperatively with 6 total people.
I guess one of my questions here is, and like the trailer doesn't really show this, like, is it Mario Kart when you're racing? Are you throwing items and stuff at each other?
There's item boxes and power-ups.
They don't show any of that in this trailer.
Yeah. But that is, so people got to play it at the press event for this. They had like an event for certain press that went to it, and it was Mario Kart. They said there's item boxes, and like when you get hit with a power-up, like bricks fly off of your car. You can build your own car in this, and they've been pretty smart with how they did it so that like you can't accidentally build something that doesn't work. Like, if you remember Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, I would start building stuff, and like I'd spend like 30 minutes building something, and it wouldn't work in the game. They'd be like, oh, you need to go back and adjust this or that. And I'd be like, what? What do I have to... Like, this game is circumventing all of those issues by... And they're not limiting how you build. They're basically just saying, this is the maximum and the minimum wheelbase you can have with each vehicle. And then go to town after that. And the press who attended the event said that it totally affects how the cars handle. If you build something top-heavy, you go around a turn, it'll fall over. So there are real physics involved there. Also, if you're watching this trailer, it's really cool how the cars just automatically transform depending on the terrain that they're on. Like, you go to water and you don't have to like hit I don't think you have to hit a button. I think the car just automatically transforms.
It looks automatic. It looks like Sonic All-Stars racing.
Same deal there. So I think this game looks pretty hot, man. Like, I'm assuming Mario Kart 9 is going to be an open world Mario Kart. Do you think that's a safe assumption, Matt?
No.
You're probably right.
I mean, I do think you're right that it's the logical next step for Mario Kart, but Nintendo is not known for taking logical next steps.
Yeah. So we'll see about Mario Kart 9, but in the meantime, this is a good little holdover. Like, Mario Kart 8 has been out there for, 11 years now? We've been waiting for another Mario Kart.
About that, yeah.
So it's good to see that, some developer or publisher is dedicating real resources to make a really good kart racing game, and I am certainly excited to give it a go and see if it turns out well or not. Do you care about kart racing, Matt?
No.
No? Only realistic driving games?
Sorta, and I only have so much room in my life for that anyway. Like, this is like... I like Lego. Obviously, I have a number of sets around the house, but like I like the licensed stuff. I like the Star Wars stuff, Lord of the Rings, Ghostbusters, etc. Just standard Lego doesn't particularly interest me, and
if this were
honestly never has.
If this were like Lego Batman racing, would that change?
No, because that would be dumb.
Okay. But I'm saying if they
Like,
did
if you
apply
put-
any IP or property to it, would that...
No, it's a racing game. It's not that interesting to me.
So it's about the kart racing and not
That
about...
doesn't get me interested either, no.
Okay.
Like, this is just a theme I don't care about in a genre I only intermittently care about.
Yeah.
If you maybe started adding, like, Star Wars and Batman as guest characters in it, maybe I might take a look at it then, but this is not particularly... I mean, it looks cool. Like, it looks like the audience it's for. Like, this looks like a pretty awesome choice. Obviously it's on more platforms than Mario Kart. Kart racers are pretty rare these days, so like it's good that will be there for people who want that gameplay and don't have a Switch or don't want to play on a Switch or would like graphics that don't look like they're from last decade. But like for me, I don't know. I'm gonna have other things to do in May.
There actually, May's not too bad of a month for game releases. A couple things before
One in particular.
Yeah, exactly. A couple things before we move on. It is available for everything and is coming on May 19th. So it's announced now and it's coming out like a month and a half or 2 months later, which I wish we got more of that.
Yeah, that's nice.
It would be nice. Also, when you play in the open world, you can partner up with up to 5 other players, 6 total. If any of those 6 people initiate a race, everybody gets sucked into the race. And I don't know how I feel about that, but...
That's an odd choice.
Yeah. Like that's something they could easily tweak.
Yeah, I mean, Forza like just tells you, hey, this race is starting if you want to do it.
Yeah,
and you don't
it gives
have
you the
to.
option. Yeah. So hopefully they tweak that. They could tweak that. There's 8 racers in each race. As I said, there's all the tenets of the Mario Kart franchise with item boxes and power-ups and all that stuff. So anyway, again, that is coming to every platform on May 19th. Next up, Matt, the UK is starting to come around on the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard. However...
I guess somebody finally read their briefs.
Yeah, exactly. Or actually finally looked into it instead of just bluster. But is it too late? Because the deadline is like next month, coming up within a month for them to sign that deal. And if not, they have to renegotiate the deal all over again.
Well, they wouldn't have to renegotiate everything. They just have to go through the process again.
Yeah.
And this time the process presumably would be faster because nobody would be trying to hold it up.
Do you think the cost has gone up or gone down since?
I'm pretty sure the cost stays the same.
Stays the same, you think?
Yeah, that's
because it's already 69 or 67 billion or something.
Yeah, that's something that would be in this fine print, basically.
Yeah.
It just will take longer. That's all.
It just put it off. Do you think they're going to sign the deal now before the deadline? I kind of think they don't.
I don't know. I mean, things like this move pretty slow, so typically you'd think that within a month that would be too fast. But also, you can make this stuff happen pretty fast if you want it to. And if they have had a turnaround, at least in the UK situation of like, oh, we didn't. Now we didn't know that was the thing. There is a possibility they could fast track it to make the deadline.
They could. It's possible.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
One way or the other, it's still going to happen.
It's going to happen. Like we've been saying this all along on GameFace. It's going to happen. It's just these people who are dealing with this have no idea what they're talking about.
There's no legal grounds to stop it.
Not
there's nothing there.
So
and now American Congress people are going on about Sony's being unfair to Microsoft in Japan. And it's like, no, that's just what a dominant power in a market looks like. Like they offered better products to that market. That's all. And
I think there's better things to worry about.
Supposedly Microsoft doesn't advertise well. I mean, they've never advertised that. I mean, that when we were there when the Xbox 360 launched, it was like 4 boxes in a corner behind the counter and like
went to the
with
game
no
stores
sign.
In Japan, it was just like shoved in a corner.
Yeah.
It would have like one little like basically vertical like stand of,
like people
stuff.
were like leaving their coffee on it.
Yeah, you could have just completely miss it if you went in there. So it has not been good for Xbox in Japan, and I don't see that changing ever.
No,
honestly.
I don't. I think Microsoft has accepted that is a lost front.
It keeps releasing its consoles into the market. It's really crazy.
I'm glad for the 10 people there who love the Xbox.
This one actually did better. Series X. I think it's maybe the best-selling Xbox ever.
Whatever that means.
This doesn't mean much.
Yeah.
But still, it does show a little bit.
The best-selling games.com.
Yeah. So anyway.
Never has a ColecoVision set the charts on fire.
Yeah. So it looks like it's going to go through, finally. We'll see how long it takes, though. In E3 news, it was announced, I believe, yesterday, or maybe the day before, that Ubisoft has now pulled out of E3 2023, but it still has its press conference on June 22nd. another case of a publisher being like, we're not going to pay the money to be on the floor, but we still want to do something around that time because all the eyeballs are there.
Well, no, they won't be. But
the eyeballs won't be there for their press conference?
For E3? No, because there's no E3.
Wait, you think they're going to cancel the whole thing?
That was a big question at GDC, apparently.
Really?
And everyone was like, is your company going to E3? We don't know. Is that even happening? Nobody knows.
So here, I'll get to the B-roll.
But the thing is, like, mid-year, June, is a pretty logical time to show off your projects and upcoming releases for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't... E3 happens when it happens for a reason, so it's not surprising they still have something to show, but it's going to be a lot cheaper to produce a video and put it online than to show up for your $8 million booth space or whatever.
Well, I mean, the thing is that Ubisoft takes up a huge chunk.
If Ubisoft is pulling out of this, it's over.
Yep.
It's over.
I mean, it takes up, in the one hall, and you can see it right here, it takes up a huge chunk of the... probably
Ubi's always been a huge
fourth
presence.
of the one hall.
Yeah, it's always been a huge presence, and bigger as time has gone on and more people have pulled out and they've expanded.
And you can see their booth is no joke. They set up gigantic play areas with
you always have
kiosks.
like 4 to 6 huge play areas with like all their games playable by like 40 people at once. Like, that's
stage show going on all day.
That's at least a booth where you can be sure you'll get to play the thing if you wait in line.
Yeah.
Like they got a lot of space for all that.
Yeah.
And not anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and it's not that they obviously they've got stuff falling out. It sounds like Assassin's Creed Mirage and
it's delayed, right?
Might be, like, rumor is. There's other people saying it's not. So there's no clarity yet. But that and there was another game that was possibly delayed to next year.
Skull and Bones.
Not Skull and Bones.
I mean,
I can't remember the other game. There were two projects that people were saying like they're probably going to slip to next year. But like,
Ubisoft used to be so into
3.
it. Look at this video. They created a hype video for their E3 presence back in 2017.
Yeah.
And in the matter of 5 years, it doesn't matter anymore.
Well, I mean, I've said, how many years have I said that was it? That E3's over. They just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
As soon as Sony pulled out, that was the end.
The beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the Battlefront 2 microtransactions
of E3. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised now is it too late though? We're like 3-4 months away from E3. It's like, if they've paid to book the convention center, I really struggle to think they could pull out now.
I mean, if the convention center gave them their old rate, it doesn't really matter.
$0.
$1 apparently.
But maybe there's a contingency in the contract that says, but you have to have the convention.
That's possible, but like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think something will occur, because it is pretty much just the PAX organization committee borrowing the name at this point. So I think something will happen. Will it be recognizable as E3? That's another question.
Who knows?
I mean, the answer is almost certainly no. It's going to be a weird little gathering of people in a hall full of also-rans and like, maybe probably at this point maybe the biggest publisher in that hall is going to be Wargaming.net.
Seriously, or like THQ Nordic, stuff like that.
Sega and Atlas or something.
It looks like most of the Japanese publishers are still showing up, which is bizarre because they're the ones who have to make the big commitment from bringing all their stuff across the Pacific. Now, some of them do leave it in like storage stuff here in LA.
Oh, almost all the big stuff is left in storage.
But they still have to travel, bring all their people over. Like, it's a huge expense for them, but they still seem to be into it. It's the whole thing.
Vincent says Sega pulled out yesterday.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, this is over.
It's over. It's over. Mm-hmm. So maybe E3 this year just ends up being like a meetup weird thing.
Sort of. I mean, it's going to be like Kensha Hall, the convention.
Seriously. Wow. So anyway, the crazy part about it, though, is it's going to be a big story. I mean, going onto that show floor, I mean, people are going to be like, what's it going to be like? Everyone's going to want to see what it's going to be like, and it's not going to be pretty.
It's going to be C-3PO at the beginning of Star Wars. What a desolate place this is.
Yeah. It's a good analogy. So anyway, E3
kind of makes me want to go.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm going to go.
Like, I want to see it.
It's like a car crash. Like, I just want to see what it looks like. Like, is it going to be worse than 2006 or whatever?
At least it's going to be different.
It will be different. That's for sure.
I want to pitch somebody like a document like a Werner Herzog style documentary about like this slowly dying thing.
The death of E3. Yeah. It could be a series, the death of whatever, and then the first episode is E3.
I mean, there is a YouTube channel that does the death of video game. I just watched their new one, the Death of Ragnarok Online.
Oh.
Which is like a 30-minute video about how Ragnarok Online slowly collapsed like a flan in a cupboard.
Yeah,
which is it's.
I mean, you could do MMOs like that.
Yeah, the channel mostly does like online games.
Yeah,
like I found them through I believe it was the Death of Earth and Beyond, which is one of my favorite MMOs nobody played except me, which is probably why it shut down.
Probably. BioWare. We've been talking about Dragon Age 4. It's actually called Dragon Age Dreadwolf. It feels like since Sifted launched.
And, I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we've literally been talking about it since then.
Inquisition was already 2 years old when you launched Sifted.
Also, interesting thing, Dragon Age Inquisition was the test page for our game pages while we developed Sifted. So I looked at that game page for literally weeks. So anyway, the game it feels like it's been in development hell, Matt. Like, it just can't seem to get wrapped up and get in proper motion. And because of that, BioWare, former executive producer, has returned to finish Dragon Age Dreadwolf. A guy who had been retired for several years has come out of retirement to jump on the project and finish the project.
Big Top Gun Maverick vibes.
Yeah. Do you think that's going to work, Matt?
As well as anything?
Yeah. As well as just doing what they've been doing all along?
I mean, I don't know. This thing needs to be a big hit.
It does.
This thing needs to hit hard.
But you're looking at the only real trailer we have of the game right now. And there still is no in-game footage. There was the game
the leak thing,
that looked horrible, abysmal.
I mean, clearly we were never supposed to see that.
Yeah, but it did not look good at all. I mean, it could have been ancient, but...
It looked like pre-alpha. All games look terrible at some point.
That one looked real bad.
No, that looked about normal.
I don't know, man.
It does.
It looked bad. The combat looked janky.
I will say this: it looked way better than that version of Dead Island 2 I played.
Oh, okay.
Vastly.
Fair enough.
I mean, there's periods where games are just shaded garbage.
Yeah.
But Dragon Age has sold better than Mass Effect historically.
Yeah.
Like, this is their kind of ace in the hole to some degree. And we'll see. I mean,
BioWare.
Yeah.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen with BioWare. It's a shame, really. But
yeah, well,
it shows you nothing lasts forever.
No, the things that it's kind of like what I keep saying about Team Ninja. The people who made those games you love don't work there anymore.
Yeah,
they've moved on.
Yeah,
and the people who made the BioWare games we loved have moved. Both group. I mean, there's a different group that made the Baldur's Gates, and now then made Mass Effect and. I mean, we know I don't like Dragon Age very much, but like. That's all different. I mean, Dragon Age Inquisition was 10 years ago. Yeah. Like, that's forever.
Yeah.
In tech terms, like,
and they're still struggling.
Yeah.
To get the game done. So things not looking great for Dragon Age Dreadwolf right now. Hopefully, this ringer that they brought in off the sidelines can get things headed in the right direction.
Yeah. Got to polish up those elf butts.
Yeah. And then finally, the final piece of housekeeping for this episode is that, may it rest in peace, but the 3DS and the Wii U eShops have now officially closed for good. Matt, did you make one last trip to see if there was anything that you wanted to buy before they went away?
No.
I
mean, I did load the Wii U up a couple weeks ago because someone said that if you leave your Wii U idle for too long, it will brick.
Yeah.
And so, but mine's fine. I did look at the shop, and everything was like extremely expensive, especially for considering it was about to close. But I'm like, I looked around and I'm like, maybe I should get Twilight Princess HD digitally, but it's $60 or something, and I didn't want to. And then I thought about it, and then I forgot about it the day it closed, and then like it passed, and I saw people posting. It's like rest in peace Wii U eShop, and I'm like, oh, I forgot to do that. And I'm like, you know what? I have turned that system on like 4 times in the last half decade, and I'm pretty sure I don't need anything.
Yeah.
Off that store.
Yeah. Like, what do you think will be the enduring remembrance of the Wii U?
Nothing.
Nothing?
I mean,
it was kind of the first Switch.
Yeah, but like the Switch is the first Switch. Yeah. Like no one. I guess.
I mean, the concepts in the Wii U have almost all of them have eventually made it over to Switch and done better.
Not the golf swing, putting the thing on the floor and swinging a club at it. But
Oh, Wii Fit balance board. Remember those days, Matt?
Yeah. Our bodies were not ready.
Mine definitely isn't ready right now. I need to do some work.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I think its legacy it'll be where Splatoon started.
Mm-hmm. Not a lot of big IP launched on it. No.
I think mostly it will be like. I think it will be the console equivalent of the Virtual Boy. It'll just be that weird thing Nintendo made, and everyone kind of scratches their head and goes, "Yeah,
remember that?
You thought that was a good idea? Okay."
I mean, still though, watching this trailer, it still looks compelling, but ultimately in practice, it wasn't. Also, I've now noticed that this video, is like by the way, that is all fake.
Of course, it is.
Those tablets are fake. Look at the analog sticks on the tablets.
Yeah,
they're not even real.
They're not real. Yeah.
Anyway,
that's called advertising, boys and girls. I mean, this trailer is like for a different console. Like this, none of this is a thing.
Most of this stuff never happened. Yeah,
no.
Some of it did, and they just never got any fanfare when they did launch it, because nobody cared.
You could do that technically, but who wanted to?
Yeah,
and also that screen. I mean, all these screens and all videos and commercials are simulated. Like none of this is real.
Right.
But like. The gamepad doesn't have resolution like that. Yeah. Come on, it's nonsense. And I remember at the end of this trailer, nobody really even. That was the one shot where you saw the system right there, sitting under the television on the right. Like, and afterwards, like there was arguments in the control room at G4 over whether it was a new system or an add-on for the Wii.
For the Wii, yeah.
And I'm like, it's a new system because there's a new console sitting under the TV in that one shot.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, how the fuck did you see that? Because that's the only thing I was looking for.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, where is the
notice in that? It just keeps saying new controller, new controller with the
it was very confusing.
New controller. Yeah, it was confusing. It wasn't. Nintendo dropped the ball in unveiling the Wii U, in my opinion. I think it did.
No, for sure.
Nobody knew because after the press conference, if you remember, Matt. They let the press go back behind the stage, and they had a huge area set up with kiosks with the Wii U. And until we walked in there, everybody was confused about whether there was new hardware or not. And then you walked in, and there was Wii U sitting underneath every TV, and we're like, yeah, okay. And then you realize also how long it was, how deep it went back into like the... Anyway, I think the Wii U is going to be, you're right, like the Virtual Boy. 3DS, on the other hand, I think people are going to champion that for a really long time.
3DS was a great system.
3DS was an amazing system. How many did you end up owning when it was all said and done?
3DSs?
Yeah. I ended up with 3.
I mean, I had the original, and then I had an I, and then I had a new 3DS, and then I have the Metroid one.
Okay.
Which I think was...
You have like 5 of them.
I have 4 or 5.
Yeah, I have 3. I think most people have multiple 3DS.
The one I have that my primary one, if you want to call it that, because I haven't probably touched it in 2 years, is like the black new 3DS. What I got for Xenoblade Chronicles, which I then played for like 20 minutes and said, this is not functional. Like, I'm not doing this.
Even with the new one, which is supposed to be more powerful, right?
Yeah, but it's just the image quality is just not there for that game. It's so weird and blurry, and you can't really even see anybody's face properly. And I just gave up on it because I'm like, you know what? I can just play this on Wii, or I can play it on Dolphin, and now I can play it on Switch in the definitive edition, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Big Smoke 82 says, Shane, I remember you pre-ordering your Wii U on Invisible Walls. Yeah, I did that. I also got Ryan Stevens a Wii U as a gift, he was like my right-hand man at Game Trailers and had done really great stuff for me, and so just as a thank you, I bought him a Wii U as well. And it was funny, like they were hard to get at first, but that didn't last long. It wasn't hard to get them after that.
No, it wasn't.
They were on store shelves.
That's also one of the few systems was released in my adult life that I did not buy on launch day. Yeah. I did not get a Wii U until Target did a Black Friday sale on the Splatoon Smash Brothers bundle. Yeah, years later, and I went to Target at 2 a.m, like night of Thanksgiving, overnight to Friday, and went into the basically abandoned West Hollywood Target, picked it up off the shelf, bought it, took it home. It was defective, put it back in the box, drove back to Target at 3 a.m, got another one, came back, went to sleep, woke up in the morning. It was fine.
It was good.
That one was good. But yeah, the one I got had dead pixels all over the gamepad. Like I turned the gamepad on, it was like somebody had poured pepper all over the screen.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
So,
well, there you go. The death of the Wii U and the 3DS. I think most people will not mourn the demise of the Wii U. The 3DS, on the other hand,
if you can get Xenoblade Chronicles X off that thing, I will never think about it again.
Yeah. Mine is in a closet, packed up and like buried.
Mine's hooked up. Like you can go down and play it right now.
I'm good.
But no one's gonna. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No one's gonna do that.
Yep. So anyway, that's it for housekeeping for GameFace episode 336. Now it's time for a word from our sponsor. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Crémasse, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com. That's creamls.com. If you're watching this show on YouTube right now, I want you to go to creamls.com right now and buy at least one bottle of LS Cream. Mm-hmm. And if you do that and you regret it, let me know, because I know you're not going to regret it, and no one's going to let me know.
I mean, you might regret it if you drink the whole bottle.
Yeah, that's not our fault. We're just saying make a drink or two. All bets are off if you drink the whole bottle, but it wouldn't be that hard to do it because it tastes that delicious. So support your fellow gamers, support your fellow sifters. This is made by a sifter, by a gamer. It's much better than giving some liquor conglomerate your money. Support LS Cream if you can. And with that, it's time to kick off GameFace 336. Before we do that, we do want to check in with our chat very quickly, though, and see what you guys are up to and see what you're saying. Again, thank you guys so much for showing up today. Like, I really didn't know if anybody would. So to see lots of discussion going on here, it is encouraging, and I'm very happy to see it. Always go at Sifted Games if you want us to see something. It makes it easier. GetUpKid1284, thank you for Twitch Prime. Nox Aeternitis, thank you for Twitch Prime. Who else got in here early on? Talica 1981, thank you. Anybody else? Don Lionheart, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. Everybody, you can do this. It's very simple. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, down in the comment or down in the description, I'll teach you how to do it. It's very simple, and we'd appreciate it very much. Kitsy Molcott, thank you for Twitch Prime. Hard to pronounce that one. Ptor91, thank you for Twitch Prime. Anybody else? The Mick Womble, thank you for Twitch Prime. A lot of you guys getting in here, and it's kind of late in the month, too. Surprising.
Was there anyone from yesterday?
What'd you say?
Was there anyone from yesterday?
We'd have to scroll so far up to get back to the beginning of the show. But I do want, if you did subscribe with Twitch Prime yesterday, thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see here. 57 months for Don Lionheart, man. That's awesome. Thank you. All right, Johnny Hurricane. Luna is not a fan of Wednesdays, I guess. Yeah, she didn't come up here.
Cats are creatures of habit. We're not at the normal time.
That is crazy. In the normal day, her mental clock was like, nope.
She came up briefly, but then immediately left.
Yeah. El Guapo 3385. Have you had a chance to see John Wick 4 yet? It's freaking fantastic. I've not, but I am not surprised by that at all. I love the first three. So.
Yeah, I have not. I'll get to it. I mean, those movies are all kind of the same movie, so it's like, oh, I'm going to see cool stunts, and that's about it. Like it's not.
I mean, the gun choreography is pretty.
Oh, sure, yeah. Absolutely, but like it's just there's no mental meat in those movies really. So I just haven't been in a hurry to see it. But it is a movie that you should see on the big screen for sure. I didn't actually see 3 in the theater. I like the first 2 a lot though.
God of Gamblers 33 asks, I don't know how E3 works. Can E3 show game demos for gamers to keep the event relevant? Yeah. I mean, that's what you're going to get, really.
Well, they can't really because they don't own the demos. Like, E3 doesn't do that, you know? Like the ESA is probably not going to be able to just bring early builds of public... Like, where would they get them, you know? Yeah. Like... There will be demos. They have to obviously
work with the publishers. The publishers have to produce the demos. But to your point earlier, this time of year, Matt, they're used to this. They're used to having demos ready to go around this time of year. Well,
right, but a bunch of them are probably thinking, hey, we don't need to waste our energy and time on that anymore.
Possible.
And we can focus on doing some kind of presentation, but we do not have to make anything that we feel comfortable letting journalists or even random members of the industry get their hands on. And now you have to worry about whether people from the random public can get their hands on things and whether to decide to make it an open demo for that or a closed demo for behind closed door. Things
have changed with COVID too. It's like now after every demo, you need to what lights the controllers and it changes everything about.
I mean, we probably should have been doing that anyway.
They should have been, but they weren't, and now they're going to have to. So that changes everything. Like honestly, I think for you people that aren't in the industry, I think it won't change that much. I think you're still going to get a bunch of premieres and debuts and new trailers for new games and all the stuff that you're used to because you have never been a part of the physical event of E3. So if you care about E3 because you're getting game debuts and new trailers for games that are already released and first gameplay of games that you're really excited for, I think for the most part, E3 is going to be pretty much the same this year. Because everyone's still having a press conference.
But it's going to be more spread out. It's going to be spread out from May to June, and it'll continue to spread out further as years go on.
I mean, E3 week, we already have confirmation of 5 press conferences of the week. So there's Microsoft, there's Nintendo, there's Ubisoft,
Ubisoft is the week after.
It's the 12th. It's June 12th.
The 12th? I thought it was the 22nd.
In my notes here, June 12th. Yep.
Well, I think eventually you'll see them all spread out.
I agree. But I think this year, people won't see, outsiders won't see much of a change. I think you'll still get a lot of the big premieres and stuff. And either Jeff is driving it or the ESA is driving it. You don't care, and you shouldn't care. As long as you get the stuff that you want to see.
I imagine Jeff will expand his show next year if this continues to be a downtrend.
That's definitely happening.
Also, I will note that the lights are flickering a little bit.
No way.
I just saw them dim a couple times. So
no way.
Buckle up, people. If it goes out, that's that.
No.
It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I noticed that.
I didn't notice that at all. Oh, no.
I'm very sensitive to that.
Oh, jeez. Erebus Jones, thank you for Twitch Prime, by the way. One last question before we get going on with the show from ETH Demon. What do you think of Steam Next Fest in that regard? Seems to have gotten a lot of dev uptake for that. I mean, it did have a lot of demos were produced for that.
But also, I would argue that a lot of those demos would have existed regardless. Steam Next Fest is useful because it is gathering all those things in a prominent place and showing them to you. There's certainly a bunch of stuff that I would not have known existed at the time, and except that Next Fest showed it to me. But I do think most of those things would have demos anyway. I just never would have known they existed
without them.
So I think Next Fest is a really good visibility thing. I don't think it's
taking over E3 or anything like that.
It's not really the same thing.
Yeah. Lots of indies there.
But it's just a more efficient use of a method of getting your game to people that a lot of people use, but it's very hard to break through the noise. And Steam apparently seems to have decided this is the way to break through the noise, and for a bunch of those games, it worked for me. So I think they should continue doing that, for sure.
Well, I'm just going to pray to the electricity
And I didn't have to wait in line for anything.
Please, electricity gods, do not turn off the power.
There are no gods, only men. And they all run LA Department of Power and Water, and they don't care what you think.
They really don't, yeah. So anyway, we'll see how it goes, because I don't have to do the open to the show a third time. 2 is plenty. And with that, it's time to move on to GameFace 336 proper. We're going to kick things off with what would have been amazing yesterday. It's not very often, Matt, that having the show on Tuesday, we get hooked up with like something that happens really hot on Tuesday morning, and then we get to be one of the first people to talk about it. That could have happened yesterday with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Enuma, and I do not believe that it was actually him driving the game, but the presentation made it seem as if he were the one demoing the game. He showed off 10 minutes of Zelda, and it was really like all cut together.
Yeah.
Like they just went to different parts. It was basically a trailer.
It was exactly the thing people complain about Ubisoft doing, where people are pretending like they're reacting to things in a preset game, except no one complains because it's Nintendo.
Yep. But the bottom line is that we got the first real like congruent chunks of gameplay from Tears of the Kingdom. We had seen in-engine footage cut together in trailers. We had never seen the actual game being played for more than like a second at a time before it was cut into a trailer. So we've got to figure out what the game is going to play like. And Matt, I guess the thing I would say first off the top is like, it plays just like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
I can't say that I expected like a huge departure, but we've talked about how this sequel, first of all, that the second Zelda game for any platform typically doesn't sell anywhere near as well as the first. And we said that for this one to buck that trend, it was probably going to have to do something really unique and different that Breath of the Wild didn't do. Based upon what we saw yesterday, I'm not feeling that at all.
Well, there's islands in the sky, Shane.
Yeah.
Didn't you
There's a word for
Sky
it.
Islands.
Is that what they call it? Sky Islands? Yeah.
Islands in the sky, Shane.
I know.
Get hype.
Well, the big thing here is development is complete. There's going to be no more delays.
Yeah.
That's a huge deal.
That's good news.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good news because we've been waiting for a long time.
Yeah, I mean,
to know that it's finally going to.
There's still a big question of like, why did this take
7 years?
6 years?
7 years? 7 years? Yeah. I mean, they started working on this before the last one came out because there's a lot of content that they cut from Breath of the Wild that's ultimately going to make it into this. So Enuma, when he started talking about this,
it does look a little better.
A little bit,
and
does it though? Really,
it does. I mean, there's a longer draw distance. Certainly, when you're up high, you can see way more of the world in more detail. It's not a leap because it's the same hardware, obviously, but it is clearly something built for. They built this knowing the Switch was the only platform for now, and in the same. I think the first one was probably held back by starting on the Wii U. So this is a more genuine, Switch title. There's more detail in the animation and sort of what's happening. I see his legs moving like that. Link needs a haircut.
This, as soon as I saw this, I was like, no, the climb meter's back.
Well, I mean, I didn't expect that to change.
So here's the thing. We'll get into more details in a minute, but basically, 2 of the 3 biggest complaints about Breath of the Wild have been addressed, but they were compromises. So first of all, they are called Sky Islands. That's what they're officially calling them. As you can see here, one of the first abilities that they show is the ability to rewind time, which is how you get up to the sky. That block comes down, you choose the rewind ability, and then it rewinds and takes you back up to the sky. Now, how they compromise the climbing meter, which again, I hate. The way they've compromised it, they've given you this other new ability where you can, if there's a ceiling above you, you can teleport upwards through the ceiling. And even if that ceiling above it is 50 feet of rock, you can teleport all the way through that rock and end up on the top. To, I would assume, eliminate a lot of the climbing in the game. So why not just remove the climbing meter?
I don't know.
And there's another thing too that people complain about.
It's an extremely strange ability.
It is. That's all the real reason
it almost feels like a debug
thing.
thing.
The only reason it exists, and it probably wasn't a debug, Matt. And they're like, well, wait a minute, that's an easy workaround for the climbing thing that everyone's complained about with the game. That really bothered me.
It doesn't. I mean, I'm sure there's a reason it's in there in terms of thematic, but it felt. That feels like a game patch, not an in-universe ability.
Yeah. Yep. So the rewind
ability... It's such a strange thing to want to be able to do.
Yeah. So the rewind ability is officially called Recall, just so you know.
Although when he activates it, it says rewind on the button prompt.
Right, yeah.
So I wasn't sure about that.
So there's actually lots of ways to get to the sky. Once you get up there, you can use your paraglider to glide from one sky island to another. So once you get up there, it seems like traversal works pretty well. Also, they mentioned yellow trees. They only grow in the sky.
I wasn't sure what the significance of that was. I'm sure
we're going to find out.
We'll get around to it.
Yeah, there's something to do with the yellow trees up there, but they weren't willing to divulge much more than that. There are new enemies, as you just saw. They're called constructs. They're almost like robots, basically.
They look like kind of spin-offs of the giant spidery laser shooting things from the first one.
Yep. And weapons still have durability, and they break. But again, another compromise that they found is this weird thing where you can just stick weapons together. Here you have a stick with a boulder on the end of it.
Which is so odd. On one hand, kind of jerry-rigging your own weapons is kind of an interesting idea. On the other, they demo this by having him hit the thing with a stick and be like, oh no, the stick broke. Okay, well, we'll put a giant boulder on the stick.
Yeah. We'll put a 300-pound boulder on the stick.
Why would the stick not break faster if you put a boulder on it? It's very weird.
It's so dumb. It's just dumb. So weapons still have a durability meter, and they still break. And if a weapon is about to break, you can meld it to another object using what's called the fuse ability. You can create clubs. You can create other weapons. It increases the weapon durability. So it's kind of like a compromise.
I didn't understand this part. We're like, what happens if you put a leaf on it and then they don't do anything with it?
Yeah, what does happen, dude?
What does happen with it?
You fan people away. And they don't show you what happens, then they show you the ice. And this is where it makes more sense. Like, combine some of the stuff because a lot of the stuff that you picked up in Breath of the Wild, it had very limited uses. Like the eyes, like you use them to cook.
Cooking. It was mostly cooking.
Yeah.
And like
now there's multiple uses for some of this stuff. I think that's a good change. That's one of the things that I like that I saw in this. And look, you probably, people will get creative with diffusing, and there will be YouTube videos where somebody creates some bonkers weapon, and it'll do 3 million views on YouTube. Like, am I going to be the person who's doing that stuff? No. I'm going to find whatever I need to build just to get through whatever I'm trying to get through, and that's where it's going to end for me.
And I'm going to be a little irritated that I have to do that.
That I have to do it at all.
I'm sorry, building that boat did not look fun at all. Like, that's not something I want to stop and do in the middle of all this. Like, it's maybe it's just not for me. Like, way too much of this was just, okay, you're adding more toys to the toy box. But what about the game? You remember when Zelda was a fucking video game?
Yeah.
And not like a,
Look at this. Let's put a pot on the shield.
It's a mushroom.
Whatever, dude. It looks idiotic.
It's a puff shroom.
What the hell?
Well, this is kind of the equivalent. They've turned. It's the
Look
shield,
at that, Matt.
Well, it's a shield equivalent of like the arrow modification.
Just give me a smoke bomb.
Well,
just give me a smoke bomb.
Well, no, you have to build.
You have to build the smoke bomb, Matt, and it looks absurd.
I mean, I don't care that it looks silly. I'm just like, what? I don't know. Like, this is clearly, I guess, for the Roblox Minecraft generation, and I'm not.
Absolutely.
How
can Link see through the smoke, but the enemies can't?
Because he's magic. Link is magic. We know that.
Maybe we now know what the leaf is for. It can fan away some of the smoke that you made from your shield grenade.
Maybe don't discount it. I mean, they showed the other enemy with the fan that knocked him off the island.
Yeah. All of this stuff just seems so archaic and janky. It's
like they made it into Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts.
It's like they thought of it, but couldn't think of an elegant way to animate it or actually implement it. And so, like, you know what? We're just going to go the goofy route. And now here we're showing this new ability that lets you build stuff. So back in Breath of the Wild, people were doing stuff like this, and it wasn't necessarily like a part of the game itself. It was like people figured out, hey, there's these physics, and it was cool. Honestly, I never did it, Matt. This is what I was talking about when I said you'll go on YouTube and you'll see a video with 5 million views. Sure. Am I going to do this stuff? No. I never wanted to do this stuff. It goes back to what I was talking about with everywhere. Adults don't want to do this stuff in games. To me, this is targeting, and look, it is Nintendo, and Nintendo generally has a younger audience, but this clearly is targeting Zelda towards kids to me.
Yeah. I mean, Zelda always has been.
Has it?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
We were kids.
I mean, well, yeah, but like they were games that, like, as an adult, you felt fine playing. They didn't feel awkward. This game is starting to feel a little awkward to me for adults to play.
I don't know. I bet something like Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess was awkward for an adult at the time.
I didn't think so.
Well,
I played those games as an adult.
We weren't as old as we are now.
I was an adult, though.
You were an adult, but like you hadn't moved on from a lot of the trends of what had become gaming at the time. This is clearly an extrapolation.
I mean, I was already reviewing games, Matt. Sure. I reviewed the entire N64 lineup.
Well, so was I.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about times have changed, and now they are basing this on the things that are popular with kids today, and that was what they were doing then too. At the time, the things that were popular with kids were also popular with us. That's no longer true.
Well, back then it was like Tamagotchi, and which I didn't like either because I was an adult. But there was stuff for kids back then that didn't resonate with me. For sure, there was. But Zelda has always been a middle ground that adults can play with their kids and not be offended by it. This is starting to stray into that other territory.
I'm not offended by this. It's just.
I mean, I don't know. Seeing the mushroom on the shield, I don't know, dude. This is not Zelda to me.
Well, no, but Breath of the Wild wasn't Zelda to me. It was a dry run for an overworld for a Zelda game they never made and apparently still haven't.
Yeah. Basically what Nintendo has done is they've just made official all the stuff people had to kind of work around in Breath of the Wild to do stuff like this. Now it's easier to do. It's officially a part of kind of the design of the game. And I don't want to do it. I don't want to build crap. I hated Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. And that is a great thing to compare this game to. It's very similar. And we mentioned that earlier, too, about how you'd build something and then it wouldn't work. And you have to go back and, like, adjust stuff.
Or that, like, I mean, one of the big problems with Banjo-Kazooie was, like, you could build these big elaborate things, But you really just needed to build like a platform with wheels.
With wheels on it.
Like
yeah.
you didn't need to do any of that unless it was interesting to you, and it wasn't interesting.
I mean, this seems to be basically the same way. It's like I just need to get across.
I need to get across
river.
3 logs and an engine, and you're done.
You can do it, or you can build some crazy casino boat. Or
and by the way, that's why the stamina meter's still there to force you to do because like when you get to that thing, he's like, "Oh, we got to cross this river." But it's too wide to swim across. And I was like, why is it too... Oh, right, because you have a stamina meter and you'll drown if you run out of stamina.
Halfway across the river, yeah.
Like, that was when that clicked for me.
Well, these vehicles also fly and stuff. Like it's not, But, again, you'd have to climb, and that's a stamina meter, too. So, to your point, it's probably accurate.
That is the limiting factor that makes that... I mean, I bet that if you want to, there's a way to do it without using all that stuff, but it's just going to take longer and require you to be probably more leveled up or something.
Yep. And now they're starting to show off the ascend ability, which is what we were talking about earlier, where you can just teleport through ceilings, like up through like lots of swimming, like rock or dirt,
swimming through stone like a fish.
Yeah,
I mean, magic is not a new thing in Zelda, obviously, but like it's such a weird. I don't know why this makes me go like, why?
I know. A lot of the stuff in this makes me go, why?
Link's done weirder things, obviously, but for some reason this is just like. Why is... I mean, a lot of times... Usually in Zelda, the abilities you can get are, like, interesting and exciting. It's like, oh, now I can do this thing. Mm-hmm. But, like...
Will I be excited to get that ability?
Yeah, this feels like, now I can skip part of the gameplay I don't like. It's like, what? Like, that... Like, you're kind of acknowledging that, like, this aspect of the game is frustrating to some people, so you're just going to give us a way to skip it, which is one thing, but you could have just fixed it.
Yeah. Erebus Jones is saying... Let's be honest, it looks like DLC. Same base game, couple of new powers, and a few new areas to explore.
Kind of. Like, the size of the map is the only difference there. Mm-hmm. It's just a gigantic world versus, like, a new little section. But, like, yeah, it doesn't... I don't look at this and say, like, oh, that's where 7 years went.
What I've seen so far, and look, there's a lot more to show of this game, but what I've seen so far, it feels like it should have been called Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah, well, I mean, they don't do that in Zelda. Nothing's ever been called 2.
Yeah. But,
even when they make the same game at the same time, Oracle of Seasons, Oracle of Ages. Zelda got one numerical sequel, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, and they never did that again.
Yep. As Matt mentioned, you get knocked off of one of the Sky Islands by this enemy with a fan, which is absurd.
I thought he was protesting something at first. I was like, what? He's like, no blonde kids meter. On Sky Islands. Like, I don't know.
He's protesting the stamina meter.
Yeah.
So after you get knocked off an island or you jump off an island, you have to free fall to get back down to the land. I'm assuming eventually you'll get something that just teleports you down there, so you don't have to spend the time flying all the way back down there.
Oh, I think you're underestimating how core they think this mechanic is.
Well, you're right, because Nintendo probably thinks this is really fun, and they wouldn't want to strip it out of the game. But after you do it once, like, it's not fun anymore.
Well, I mean, you can do the dive that gets you there pretty fast.
Helps.
I will note, though, if you ever jump off a real Sky Island, hitting water at that height is like hitting concrete. Do not do that.
Well, I also wonder, too, if...
Pull your hang glider out.
They don't mention this, but do you have to land in water?
No, I think you just pull...
I guess you just pull out your glider before you get to the ground and then glide down?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were. I mean, one reason I bet one reason they showed that is because it would never have occurred to me that I could dive into the water from a mile up and not die.
Right.
So
because water turns into once you hit terminal velocity.
Yeah.
Water is basically concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't
like that will kill you.
It'll kill you too. It'll break your legs. And
similarly, if you're underwater, you generally cannot be hit by bullets because bullets are going so fast they hit water and shatter like it's concrete. Like water is actually good cover for that.
Yeah. Yeah. To your point, it really feels like Nintendo was like, hey, Roblox and Minecraft.
Yeah, they're absolutely chasing those trends.
Yeah. Which is not what Nintendo usually does. It sets the trends.
It is.
And others chase.
It is a little out of character. And it's just such a weird franchise to do that
I know.
with. Like, Zelda has a formula.
Yeah.
Zelda has a formula that has worked for most of our lifetime. And this ain't it.
I do wonder, too, if the Sky Islands are going to replace the shrines in the game.
I don't know. We haven't seen any puzzle solving.
No puzzle solving? They didn't say anything about dungeons still, which is what everybody wants to know more than anything, if there's going to be real dungeons in this game.
Yeah, this looks like even less that there might be real dungeons.
Right.
Like, I don't see how those... I mean, how is that ceiling ability going to work in a dungeon?
In a dungeon? How? You can just leave at any time? Or are they going to just cut it off from you?
Maybe. I mean, he said there were limitations to it, so I can see if you go in a dungeon like that, those abilities don't work anymore.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. Like, if like I could see going in a dungeon and like all your like your kind of toy box open world Roblox abilities like turn off because you're not there, or you're in another dimension, or there's some kind of spell on you or something. And then you have to kind of do like a more standard traditional dungeon crawl. But like, I don't know. Like, they're certainly not hinting at it so far.
See what I'm saying about how it looks like each island is like its own self-contained little shrine?
Well, I mean, I assume there's going to be like something to solve on each
sky shrines.
I don't think they're going to be that discreet as like walled off things, but yeah, I assume every sky island will have some kind of thing you have to do on it to solve it, quote unquote.
Again, it just feels like all the changes that they've made to this have made it to appeal to a younger audience instead of the people who have grown up with Zelda all these years. Like, it's doubled down on the open-end creative elements of the original instead of the more curated, created Zelda games of the past.
And I can, I can see why you make that choice in following up Breath of the Wild, because that was in fact why Breath of the Wild's, that was most of Breath of the Wild's engagement.
Do you think that's what most people liked about Breath of the Wild?
It's what most of the internet liked about it.
Right. So the YouTube videos and stuff. Yeah.
Like, most of the engagement post-launch and in the subsequent years was stuff like that. So I can see why you would decide that that's what we double down on. I don't know if that's what most people liked about it.
I mean, I hardly use those abilities unless I had to. And when I had to, I was like, this is annoying. I didn't like having to do it at all.
I thought the open world aspects of it, beyond the scope and kind of the vista, in terms of like having the toy box elements, for me were the least interesting thing.
Me too. Agreed. Most interesting to watch on YouTube, least interesting to actually play.
Yeah, I'm not interested in engaging with it.
Well, what about people that just aren't creative or just aren't interested in it? Like,
well, then you're not going to save Hyrule.
I mean, I would argue the older adult is the X factor in sales here. I feel like the kids who own a Switch, they're going to want the new Zelda. I feel like it's us that you need to convince to actually spend the money on the game. If you have to convince anyone. Obviously, it's Zelda.
I don't think you have to convince anyone.
Maybe.
I think this game is bulletproof.
Yeah. Again, it does appear that Nintendo is compromising. Like, a lot of the only thing that we don't know yet, that other people complained about, the third one, is the story. Are they going to tell a real story this time? Is it going to be a compelling story? Is it going to be like the last game where you get a cutscene to open the game and then it just like basically goes away for like 30 hours? Like,
I don't want to be too revolutionary, but I'm going to say that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the third thing people complained about.
I mean, there will probably be more cutscenes. I'm sure there will be more story to this, but it seems like I think you're still going to have the same story to gameplay ratio in the sense that this thing looks gigantic. That's one of the problems with looking at this and kind of looking at what they demoed here. You can see, especially when Link's way up high in the Sky Islands and diving off, I'm like, that's huge. That world is gigantic. There's tons of places to go. And all I see after this demo is like, look at all those places I can go and be annoyed by these mechanics. Like, I am not excited about this.
I'm not either. In fact, after seeing this, I am less excited for this game than I was before. Which is not the objective of releasing
Probably
the first gameplay. I
mean, look, I would argue that we are old enough that we don't matter.
Yeah,
like
maybe.
We are clearly not their target audience for this game.
Well, obviously, based on the tweaks that they've made. They have definitely made the tweaks for younger players and not people like us. Which probably is the right thing to do.
Yeah, I would say it is.
Also, it announced a new...
It's not what I want, but we're at the age where it's time to accept that a lot of things in the world are not what you want.
Exactly. Yep. It also announced a new OLED model of the Switch for Zelda. Are you going to pick it up?
No.
No?
Like, why would I do that?
Because honestly, as things are working out right now, Matt, the only things that you can collect in gaming anymore that they're going to end up becoming more valuable are consoles.
I don't know. Do you know how much Devil's Third goes for now?
Yeah, but that game launched 14 years ago, 12 years ago. Actually, no. It was like 10. It was like 10.
That was like 2017. That was around the time the Switch came out.
Yeah, it was like 2012, 2013, something like that.
No, it was way after that.
Was it?
Yeah, it was one of the last Wii U releases.
You're right on that.
I had to get my friend from Canada to get it for me.
Yeah. I don't know, but so there's one game. But generally...
a lot of Wii U games are very valuable.
Yeah, because it was a failed console.
Yeah, and because it's Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like anything... People like to have full Nintendo libraries. For whatever reason, that's a thing that doesn't happen as much in the other...
That's true.
Console. So I've even seen people at a certain point, I'm going to build my full
generally,
library.
Though. Like, generally, games that I'm buying right now for my PS5, like... When I go to retire, I'm not going to be able to sell those games. Most of them I'm going to sell them for less than I paid for them.
December 2015.
2015. Yeah.
So almost as old as this.
Yeah, exactly. So, to me, like, the things that you can buy now that actually increase in value significantly still are limited edition consoles.
Well, certainly in terms of like quicker appreciation, yeah, it's like all the limited edition Nintendo systems are sure bets. That Metroid DS
all of
is
them.
obscenely expensive now.
I'm thinking about buying this OLED model. I don't need it. I already have an OLED, a gray one, but I wouldn't even open it. I just buy it, get it, put it in my closet, and forget about it for 20 years.
Well, the other thing you should do is if you can find a decent price Wii U, those gamepads are going to be
worth a lot of money.
Worth gold.
Yeah.
Like, because they're going to stop working.
Yeah.
And they're going to be things you have to replace, and they don't sell replacements anymore.
Yep.
And you can't use that system without it.
No.
Like,
it's
those
dead.
are, like, if you're looking for, like, you know, burgeoning retro game hardware to invest in, get a stack of functioning gamepads and get ready to sell to collectors in, like, 10 years.
Yeah. And you'll make a lot of money off of them. But anyway, the console comes out on April 28th. And then they're also releasing...
you wait like 3 weeks for the game to play on it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
They're also selling a Pro Controller, Zelda-themed Pro Controller, and a carrying case, and those launch with the game on May 12th. So...
I mean, they know where their bread's buttered.
Yep. So the console comes out a couple weeks before the actual game, and the Pro Controller and the carrying case. But again, if you're a collector and you buy stuff to try to make money on it, I would probably try to score one of those limited edition Nintendo Switch OLED models because I do think in 15 years it's going to be worth probably a G, roughly. So definitely worth looking into if you already have one.
Devil's Third can be worth that much.
No, exactly. You know, a limited edition console can get there for sure. So I think I already said, like, this lowered my anticipation for this game. How did it hit you, Matt?
Yeah,
It's not that I'm turned off by it and I don't want to play it. It's just I expected more. Especially after all the time it's taken to build this game. And look, we still don't know everything.
Yeah, I expect there will be more. It's like the things they've decided to group together in this update are not of interest.
Generally, you would think the first time you show the gameplay, you pick the big things that are going to like rock the foundations and really make an impact.
Well, these are technically the new things,
which to me is disappointing.
Yeah, but I mean.
But to me, some people may like that this is now officially a part of the game.
You know, to me, the new things I want to know about are the things that are the old things that weren't in the last.
The dungeons.
One. I want the old Zelda stuff that made
boss
Zelda
fights, dungeons,
made Zelda to come back.
Me too.
And maybe it will. We don't know yet. I mean, they got time to put another one of these out next month.
Yeah.
Before the launch.
I mean, that's the thing too. So my guess is information on this game is about to just start dumping. Because
I don't know, because I think the implication, at least in the voiceover in this, is that like, oh, you'll discover a bunch of this for yourself. Like, there is part of me that thinks it wouldn't be super surprised if they don't do another one of these.
Yeah, I think they'll do one more at least.
I would think so.
And they'll put out trailers
to focus on combat and like others.
They'll put out a story trailer,
maybe, but like I don't know. Like I said, this game's bulletproof. They don't need to do anything.
Yeah, I mean it's going to sell amazingly. Although again, if you look historically. Second Zelda games on a platform have not done anywhere near as well as the first.
Second Zelda games have traditionally sold half what the first one did. But
I think this will break that trend.
I would think so. Also, half of Breath of the Wild is not a problem.
It's still 15 million units or whatever. It's still pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, the volume of what's involved has just changed so much, even from the last time they released a second Zelda on a console.
Yeah. And plus, you have the install base on Switch is just insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
The critical mass here is a big deal. I mean, and also like one way or the other, you know, the closest analog would probably be Skyward Sword after Twilight Princess, and it's like there's something to be said for the fact that Skyward Sword was such a drastic departure from what Twilight Princess was, and also sucked. That like this is a much safer move in that we're just doing
I mean it really is Breath of the Wild 2.
We're doing Breath of the Wild again.
Yeah.
And I mean Majora's Mask is Ocarina 2 technically, but it's a completely different approach to the game.
Well, it's kind of like DLC for Ocarina of Time.
A little bit, yeah. I mean,
if that had been was supposed to be DLC because it was called Euro Zelda. That was supposed to be on the N64 DD,
right?
Which was ill-fated and never came out. Like so they just released it.
If that had come out in a different era, that's what it would have. It would have been, like a DLC add-on.
Yeah.
But like, it's just. I think this probably has better sales potential than any other Zelda that's been released because they've changed things up so much in the other Zelda to Zelda. You know, even Ocarina to Majora's is a big change. Wind Waker was, you know, nobody knew what to make of that one. And then even Wind Waker to Twilight Princess was a huge difference. This is probably the least different Zelda game from its predecessors since ever. Yeah, because like you can't. I mean, Zelda 2 and then Link to the Past is completely different to that. I mean,
Wind Waker.
I mean, I guess sort of Link's Adventure to Link to the Past. Is the closest I could get to that.
And that's you have to go to 2D for that. So.
Yeah, you got to go back to my high school days for that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So.
Well, anyway, that's the latest on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Again, it's coming out on May 12th. The console's coming out on April 28th. And then there's a new Pro Controller and a carrying case to go along with it. So I do think we'll start seeing a lot more about this game here in the coming weeks because, again, it's basically launches in like a month and a half. Let's be honest. It's literally like 6 weeks away from release, which is pretty awesome to think about. So, again, like, don't get me wrong. I'm a little disappointed in what we saw here. I'm still excited to play it, and I'm going to play it. And I'm sure I'll spend 50 or 60 hours on it, and we'll come back and we'll powwow together and see what everybody thinks about it. But for now, let's see what you guys think about this first gameplay. Cinetike, how do you feel the public in general will respond? Is it another 9 or a 10 out of 10?
Well, the public doesn't review games usually.
Yeah, I mean, there's user ratings.
I can't see it getting less than a 9 in the Metacritic, if only to avoid the death threats.
Right. That's a thing, unfortunately. Congrim1 says, some physical games, collector's editions increase quite a lot, too. That's true. Some of them do. But I even have, like, collector's editions from, like, the Xbox 360 and PS3 era that aren't worth anything. And they cost, like, $200 when they came out, and now you can maybe sell them for, like, 30 or 40 bucks. Like, a lot of that stuff
it depends on what
increase.
It has to be something that retains the interest going forward. It can't, like... Or like a really niche thing that the fandom will pay. It's someone who's collecting those things will pay. Like Shin Megami Tensei stuff that was limited run tends to be valuable.
Atlas stuff.
Because you've got dedicated fans of those.
And they only pressed like a million or whatever.
Whereas like if there was a limited edition of like Red Faction Gorilla, probably nobody gives a shit.
Any money. God of Gamblers 33. I don't think I will pick up this Zelda game. Breath of the Wild felt like a chore halfway through the game. I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
I still found myself, I kept doing the same things over and over again, and I kept playing it. But you're right. Like, it did feel like a chore at times to play.
Yeah,
and a lot of it had to do with the stupid stamina meter, making it a chore. Other parts of it were like the level design, where I would like venture literally like 5 miles in a direction, and you just get to a dead end where you couldn't figure out like where to go or how to get. I burned
out after about 60 hours.
Look, we've been on the record here on GameFace since Sifted launched that we were not huge proponents of Breath of the Wild like the rest of the industry was. Like, we were not like, this is a 10 out of 10 game like everybody else was. So it only stands to reason that we also would not be over the moon about
I don't even know if I'd call it, I put it in my top 5 Zeldas. I clearly want something very different from Zelda than the modern
It would probably come in at like 5th for me.
I don't know.
I mean, if you're including all the 2D stuff.
Yeah.
Then it would probably come in at 5th for me.
I definitely don't like it better than Link to the Past or Ocarina.
Yep.
Or Wind Waker.
Yep.
And actually, Twilight Princess. I like Twilight Princess more. I like...
That's why I get it at 5th. There's my 4. Yeah.
I like Link's Adventure more. I like Oracle of Seasons more.
Really?
I liked Oracle of Seasons actually a lot. I didn't like Oracle of Ages very much. I don't know why. There's such similar games.
I only played one, and I can't remember which one I played.
That's fair.
In hindsight.
I liked Seasons a lot. I thought Ages was okay.
But I think 5-ish, roughly, is about right. Like,
in there, but like, again, for something that people talk about as though it's the second coming.
We're way out of the mean.
Yeah.
We're way off the reservation on that. I would argue probably the 80% of people think that it's Breath of the Wild is the best Zelda ever. Because it gave people what people were begging for.
I think you have to go.
Open world
I think
Zelda.
you have to go under a certain age for that.
Maybe.
I think people our age are still going to put Link to the Past pretty high up there at the very least.
Yep. So anyway,
and Link's Adventure, there's a huge contingent of people that consider Link's Adventure the best Zelda game, which
they're wrong.
I don't. I've never understood that. And playing the remake reconfirmed how confusing that is to me. I do like that game.
Yeah.
but like
it's fine.
And it did kind of create the template that Link to the Past followed, expanded, and perfected, I would argue.
But Link to the Past is a vastly superior game.
Of course.
Like, Link to the Past to me is like maybe my second favorite Zelda.
Yeah. I mean, I go back and forth between Ocarina and Link to the Past. It's probably still Ocarina in the end.
Yep.
Because I think Ocarina realized what Zelda always wanted to be. Like, Mario 64 revolutionized how you do 3D controls and brought Mario into 3D in a way that maybe none of us really saw coming.
I don't think anybody could.
But Zelda has always wanted to be 3D.
Yeah,
Even the angle of the 2D games is like a pseudo 3D.
Yeah, it is.
Like Zelda going 3D was what Zelda had always wanted to become.
Yep.
And so Ocarina was more of a realization of what Zelda was always meant to be to me. Whereas Mario was more like, oh wow, you came up with a new idea for this that I never considered. Whereas Ocarina was like, yes, this is what Zelda was in my head.
Ocarina of Time also created the template for what the modern action game would be for the next 20 some years.
Well, we're
still using the Z
still
lock.
use Z targeting. Whatever you want to call it, whatever stick you click for it, that's still
that
Z
came from
targeting.
Zelda. Yep. So anyway, there you go. That's all we know right now on The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Next up, something that I have been
More like Tears of the Fandom.
The fandom, I think, is probably happy about this. People like us.
It depends. I mean, older people who like the traditional Zelda are also a fandom. But the fandom that just worships everything Nintendo puts out for 6 months, so you're not allowed to criticize it until the bloom wears off the rose. Yeah. That fandom will be fine.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. It's time to talk about something that I am really excited to talk about, and I've been excited to talk about it since I finished the game, Resident Evil 4 Remake. The game came out on Friday. I finished the game on Monday morning. I literally could not stop playing it, Matt. From the moment I got it, and I did get it, I got it like on Wednesday night, so I had a couple days like head start on you guys, and so I finished it on Monday morning. Like, you could probably finish the game in 3 strong days of playing. Like, if you get up and you play like all day and then stop at like 10 at night or whatever, if you do that 3 days, you're going to finish it. It is about 18 to 20 hours long, roughly.
I mean, if you know what you're doing, it's much faster.
I mean, there are speedruns out there that, well, the thing is, most of the speedruns are allowing people to use, like, the Game Plus, where you have, like, overpowered weapons, and you have a rocket launcher to start the game. Like, I haven't seen somebody speedrun it, just the base game.
Oh, I guarantee you that's the main speedrun for this.
All the ones I'm seeing are, like, Game Plus.
New Game Plus speedruns are not generally the...
Yeah, I know, as far as records are concerned.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a speedrun of the base game yet to see what people are doing it, how fast they're getting through it. But
probably no one has, like, perfected whatever that is to the point that they want to show it publicly yet.
But they will. And you're right.
Oh, yeah.
Eventually, they'll cut that down to, like, a couple hours or maybe less. Like, they'll figure out glitches to, like, get through stuff. So, I have finished the game. How far have you made it in?
Oh, chapter 7 or 8 at this point. Like, I've been with Ashley for a while now.
Yeah.
Just enough
Which is, if you have been with Ashley for a while, you're qualified to deliver your opinion
everything.
On. Yeah. Because after that, it's just permutations and combinations after that. I want to structure our discussion in a way that I make sure that I touch on everything in the game. Let's talk about the story first. Matt, one thing I realized before we were recording the show yesterday, which was bunk because of the power outage, was that I never knew how Ashley ended up in Spain. Like, obviously, the plot of the story is the president's daughter, Ashley, has been kidnapped by this religious cult, and she's in Spain, and Leon Kennedy is sent in to rescue her. But I never knew, how did she end up there?
Well, I knew she got kidnapped while she was in Europe for whatever reason. And
I never knew that.
I looked it up, and she was kidnapped by Krauser and brought to that village by him.
Okay. So now we actually know how Ashley ended up there.
I don't remember if they say that in the game or if that's like a letter you can find or something. I don't remember where that comes from. I always knew she didn't go to some random creepy village in Spain on vacation or anything.
Yeah.
Someone
just stumble into the wrong village.
It was apparently Krauser.
Yeah.
Who did that.
Okay. He played a big part in the game, obviously. And the story in this does not change.
No, it's pretty much the same thing.
It's pretty much identical. And
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a little broken because there's just some parts in the game where you're like, what just happened? Like, for instance, they just let Leon live over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That's Resident Evil.
I mean, a lot of games do that where the villain is like, it all get you later, and like they just leave and walk out a door.
Like the time when the fun, and I don't remember if this happens the same way in the original, but the one that the villains being weird, arrogant dickheads who like wait for you to wake up to taunt you. Okay, that's like standard serial villains shit. Like, okay, it's a pulp movie, I get it. The thing that made me laugh in this one was after you fight the lake monster and he like passes out in the boat and then like wakes up and it's like, oh, you've been out for like like you've been out of touch for like 4 hours. She said, and like they just picked him up and put him in a cell and just walked away. I'm like, you guys are relentlessly trying to kill me at every other time in the game, and you found me like completely vulnerable, and you're just like, oh, let's put him to bed.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
there's stuff like that all through this game, just implausible stuff. Where you're like, wait a minute, like why? How?
Well, especially after like the third time he has escaped and killed like 40 of you, like maybe just cut his throat and call it a day. Yeah, like,
they keep letting him live over and over.
The
again.
man has killed your favorite giant. He killed your lake monster. He's very dangerous. He's a giant dork, and he's the only one who doesn't know that, which I appreciate that they kept about Leon.
He meets Lewis, and they partner up, and then Lewis leaves.
Yeah. Well, that's what people do. They leave Leon. Like, Leon's entire character arc through all the games he's in is people leaving him.
Yeah.
Like, Leon must have giant abandonment issues. Like, the only character who doesn't leave Leon is Ashley.
Yeah.
She's the first character to ever stay with him for any length of time beyond a cutscene.
Yep. And then there's just, like, honestly, the story is identical. And they also haven't done anything else to really develop the story any better. It fails to develop the interpersonal relationships between Leon and Ashley or Leon and Lewis. Like,
I mean, they got rid of a lot of the weird dialogue that that became memes.
Yeah.
With like some of the weird,
like the ballistics line is gone.
Ballistics line, the zingers that like Leon would sometimes fire.
He still
off.
says corny crap.
He says his corny things, but they're not like, they don't sound like translation errors.
Yeah,
the way
that's
other
true.
ones did.
Yeah. But it's like you spend all this time with Ashley, and like you don't really get to know her any better than you do in the original game, and she doesn't get to know Leon any better than she does in the original game. They just leave it kind of as it is. There was just a lot of opportunity to make the story in this more meaningful than they did, and they didn't do it. Now, the truth of the matter is, this game is driven by the game itself, because it just keeps throwing you into one compelling scenario after another. So it's very easy to just forget, like, some of the dumb crap that happens and just keep trudging forward, because right around the corner, there's going to be something absolutely awesome to do. And that's what really carries the game. The variety, like, some of the stuff that they removed out of this did take some of the variety out of it, but I would argue also that the stuff that they removed were like the weakest parts of the original game. Like, a lot of the stuff that they did include that was more quirky from the original game, they've improved in this. Like the minecart chase scene, way better in this. Like, it's nowhere near as janky and weird as it was in the last one, where you'd have, like, the guys jumping into the cart in front of you randomly while you're also trying to shoot. Like, it was just a mess, kind of, in the first one. A lot of those sections of the game in this have been smoothed over, or they've just been eliminated altogether.
Well, like in this one, there's an achievement for getting through the minecart without taking any damage.
Yeah.
And in the original, you're like, fuck you.
Right.
And like in this one, you're like, oh, no, that's probably doable.
You might be able to do it. Yeah.
A little practice, but you could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a question, actually, that maybe you can answer. I don't even know if you've got to this part of the game yet this time, but Salazar is actually named Ramon.
Yeah.
Was that the case in the original?
I believe that was his
I thought they just called him Salazar.
They did usually just call him Salazar, but I believe his name was Ramon Salazar.
Okay. But in this, they call him Ramon.
I believe his name is Ramon Salazar.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I'm like, why are they calling him Ramon now? Like,
I don't know why
weird.
they changed that. No.
They changed him drastically.
Yeah, well.
Do you like the new Salazar?
It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can't
He's
really...
not as goofy as he was.
No. I mean, he was a cartoon villain in the first one. But, like, Resident Evil 4 was like a transition between like the Goonie version of Resident Evil. We forget that the original Resident Evils were fucking comedies.
They were tongue-in-cheek, yeah.
I mean, I know they say that they were trying to be tongue-in-cheek with those live-action scenes in the first Resident Evil. I do not believe that.
I don't believe that either.
At all.
I think that's just what they made.
That's just what they did, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And like all that's, it took years for them to get past that. Resident Evil 4 was the first time even the dialogue in a Resident Evil felt like, even close to real people talking to each other. And it still wasn't quite there, but it was a hell of a lot better than hope this is not Chris's blood.
Right.
Kind of, like, don't open that door. I mean, it's just, and then you go back, I went back to the Resident Evil remake a couple weeks ago, and like, they fixed all that in the remake, but now 20 years later, all the remake dialogue sounds ridiculous. Like it's all fixed. It doesn't sound like. It's not you were almost a Jill sandwich, and in the remake, it's like a few more minutes, and you could have fit nicely into a sandwich. I'm like, that's not a better line.
No,
that's not. That's
not a
still
good way to
very
fix the
weird. It's
problem
still an
you had
extremely weird thing to say.
I agree.
Like, just stick with the master of unlocking shit if you're gonna go that way. So it's like, things just progress. And remember that remake was made 2 years before this came out.
Yeah.
So, a lot of, and this has gone through a similar sort of overhaul of, like, the story is the same, but a lot of the dialogue has been tweaked to be less bizarre. But it's still, it's if you saw this in a movie, it would be about as good as a Resident Evil movie.
Yeah.
That's about all you got.
Now, they do there's some subtle touches in kind of the periphery of the storytelling. For example, like, in the beginning of the game, in the village section, Leon bails out of the window, and he hurts his shoulder. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've noticed or not, Matt, the entire game, Leon...
He rubs his shoulder.
And grabs his shoulder. Like, there's little...
Especially after climbing out of things.
Yeah, there's little stuff like that, like, all the way through it. Like, I don't know, like, the rain, he reacts to the rain every time.
Yeah, he hates the rain.
I'm not sure why. I haven't even finished it, and I'm still not sure why it's a thing throughout the whole game.
Well, if you had that hair, you wouldn't want to get wet either.
You're probably right. Generally, like, the story is just kind of like a passenger in this game. It's just a ham-fisted excuse to get you from one awesome scenario to another.
Yeah, that's how this series
That's fine.
rolls.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I was a little disappointed.
The characters are entertaining enough. I know Salazar's been toned down a bit, but I think, Leon's still pretty funny, and he's a goon. And you run into all these colorful people. Ashley's pretty much a zero still. Mm-hmm. She's not. The thing is, like, she doesn't act like the standard sort of like weird anime little girl. Like, oh no, it's like, what do you? I'm gonna stamp my foot and get it. Like, all that. But they also didn't think of a new personality to replace that. Yeah. So she's just sort of there.
She's still a ditz, basically.
A little bit. I mean, she's supposed to. She looks very out of place, but I think she's supposed to. She's dressed nicely. She's clearly from a different class of society than everyone else in this game.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is clearly intentional. She doesn't quite fit the setting because she's not from this set. She was, and it is nice of them to have allowed her to keep all her fancy clothing very clean.
Yeah. Well, she gets dirty.
She's a little dirty.
On her character model, she gets dirty throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, but when he rescues her from the dingy, horrible cell, that coat is pristine.
Right. Yeah. And she only loses the coat like in the last act of the game. She probably still has the coat on.
She still has the coat on.
Eventually, she loses the coat and looks more like she does in the original. Here's the merchant. They did a great job on the merchant. I was nervous about it after the demo. I was completely unfounded. The merchant is awesome in this game.
Yeah, I'm still not sure how much I like Chatty Merchant.
He talks a lot, but he says some funny stuff, too.
He is pretty funny. Also, I understand why you had to do that because he has so much more involvement in the he's not just the store. There's the shooting range, and there's there's a bunch of other things he's doing that I don't know how you'd get around having him talk more.
Yeah, so there's a shooting range.
He kind of has to be more of a character. And I think you've established that with, I can't remember his name in 8, the merchant in 8, who talks about him briefly.
The portly guy.
The big guy.
Yeah, I don't remember his name either.
He mentions this guy.
He does,
this merchant, and it's kind of implied that there is sort of like a global society of weird, mystical, teleporting merchants in the world. It seems to imply that he's one of his colleagues or something. And I'm like, are we gonna get into this in Resident Evil 9?
Some real canon?
Are you laying the groundwork for Resident Evil 9 merchant madness or some shit? What is going on here? That
would be awesome.
Is that going to be the mercenaries mode in the next game? It's just a bunch of merchants in a death match? What's going on?
Yeah.
A death match to sell.
He's a lot chattier, but he has some great lines. One time he said, after I bought something, he said, "A wise choice." And then he goes, "I know I say it a lot, but I mean it."
What was the one I got when I bought a new gun? I bought the Red 9, I think. He's like, "Oh, gun rhymes with fun for a reason, stranger."
I love him. I think he's great in this. My fears were completely unfounded. I think they did a great job.
The other one I like is when you run into the store area and he goes, "Oh, break time's over, I suppose."
Yeah. He snaps to attention. Yeah. He's slacking. I think he's great. And then to your point, he does a bunch of stuff. So he's like he sells you stuff and buys stuff, and you have the whole thing where you get the treasures and you insert the gems, and then that basically exponentially increases how much they're worth when you sell them. But then there's also this secondary market where you can buy things with these credits that you earn by completing side missions.
The spinels.
And the spinels are...
Which if I remember, were just a normal sellable item in the original.
I believe so.
I think they were like the worst treasure you could get.
I think so.
Basically, yeah.
So in this, the problem is that like some of the most important upgrades are in that instead of just buying them with the currency that you earn. And so if you need, for example, the Red 9 you just brought up, I ended up that's
Andy T. Monahan, Mercenaries.
Oh,
Mercenaries
nice.
mode. Yes.
That's
yes. That is it.
Merchant Aries. That's
Copyright that right now.
So I ended up choosing the Red 9 as my pistol that I wanted to use.
Red
for the
9
whole
was
game.
my choice back in the old one too. But
it's badass.
It is, and it's very strong. But I have actually, I can't remember the name of the one I've stuck with. It's like the 19-shot one that was in my inventory from I think the pre-order or something. Because it can use the red dot sight.
Right.
It can use the laser sight. The laser sight used to be able to attach to pretty much anything.
Yeah.
In the game. And in this, I think you can only attach it to 2 or 3 guns.
Yep.
And I love the laser sight, and so I've stuck with that other one, which is done fine, but I do miss the Red 9. I believe very strongly they will re-add red sight in a patch
Maybe.
to everything, because that is one of the biggest complaints I've seen from people.
So the Red
Which,
9
if that's
is,
one of your biggest complaints, game's pretty good.
It's pretty good, yeah. So the Red 9, I actually chose it, and it's the thing is, it's very powerful. Mm-hmm. See right there, I just shot that axe out of here, by the way. It's very powerful, but it's very unsteady.
Yeah.
So you need the stock for it to make it feasible. The problem is the stock is in that other marketplace where you have to complete side missions to get it. I had gone on a buying spree and used all of my currency for that alternative market, and then they introduced the Red 9 and the stock, and I could not buy the stock for forever, because the other problem with the way this game is designed, Matt, is that it's very difficult, bordering on impossible, to go back and complete side missions from the early part of the game. There's no fast travel in the game. None. So you have to literally walk or run the whole way back to the beginning of the game at the village. And at that point, you're like 10 miles away. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going back to the village to kill a dog in the village to earn enough currency so I can buy this stock. So I had to put off using the Red 9 for a good hour and a half or 2 hours before I built up that currency again to where I could buy it. So to me, there are trade-offs with that new system. I'm not sure why it really exists, to be honest. I was not a fan of it. I liked the side missions. Don't get me wrong. I liked that there was these little things that you were doing while you're adventuring around. And 9 times out of 10, it was like shoot 5 rats or shoot 5 blue medallions or whatever. But it still forced you to examine the environments more closely.
Yeah, I mean, the kill the dog thing is given to you early enough to do when you pass the village again, trying to get back to the chopper. I didn't do it either because I was busy trying to get to the chopper, and I was like, "Oh, it's in the chief." I'm like, "I don't know what the fucking chief's house is. How am I supposed to know whose house is whose?"
Yeah,
and I just didn't find it. I didn't know, so I
didn't stumble across.
And I will probably end up. I got it on the way back, and I will probably end up having to go back to the village and do that for more spinels later too. But I mean, I tried very hard to do the quests, the requests. When I got them, because they are always near where you need to do the thing.
Yeah. Some of the finding the medallions was annoying, where you just had to comb every centimeter of the area you're around to find.
They're on my map.
And so if you have the map, you buy the map, which you also had to buy. You also buy the maps in that other market. That's where you get those from. So you're right. If you do have a map, it shows you where they are. If you don't have the map, I didn't have the map for the very beginning for the farm area. When I was trying to find
the farm area,
I
haven't played the game in over a decade, but I felt like those were the same place as they were in the original.
Matt, I'll be honest with you, I had forgotten so much about this game.
So, as soon as I saw those medallions, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember doing that.
Yeah, I couldn't find one of them. I searched high and low. And
also,
never find it.
Am I crazy, or were in the original were there treasures you could get that they were on walls and you shot them down and they'd fall? Or am I thinking of another game?
Maybe.
I feel like
I think you're thinking of shooting a bird and the egg falling. Maybe.
I swear there were a little shiny thing. You could see a little glint.
A glint on it. I remember that too. There's something in my mind that is saying yes, that's accurate, but I can't place it for sure. But anyway, the little side missions I thought are cool. They give you a little something else to do when you're going through the main game. So I thought that they were a pretty cool addition. And then getting rewards for it are nice. I just didn't like how the rewards were tied into this other marketplace. One other complaint I had, though, is that there's no way to compare weapon ratings to see if it's worth upgrading up weapons or switching to a new weapon. Like
comparing between weapons?
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it on the merchant upgrade thing, but you'd have to put all the weapons in your inventory.
Right, to do it.
Because they do, to their credit, show you the maximum stats of the weapon
when you're going to upgrade
them.
Yep. But there's no, like most games, you have a weapon that you're using, and then you hit like the triangle or the square, and then it shows you like this new weapon, and you can compare them like side by side. Like there's nothing like that in this game, which is just a really simple thing. But
Swan Senpai says you press square, you can do that.
Oh, I didn't see that at the bottom of the screen in the menu.
I don't know.
Interesting. Somehow I missed that. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I already finished the game though, so it's maybe a little too late.
You can play it again?
Maybe.
Because that's what you're supposed to do.
Well, I mean, it's good enough that I might actually play it again. I mean,
Resident Evil 4 has always been a really fun New Game Plus.
Yeah. And there is a New Game Plus.
They give you a lot of stuff to play with.
Yeah. And then each weapon has an exclusive upgrade. So once you upgrade it 100%, then there's one extra upgrade. And most of the time, it's just like now damage is multiplied 1.5 times or whatever. Mm-hmm. The other thing, too, about upgrading weapons in this, you feel the difference.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Every little upgrade.
Don't let the little point... 1.3 fool you.
You feel the difference. It absolutely matters. Like even like just upgrading your gun one power rating makes a world of difference with almost every gun. So the upgrades absolutely feel relevant and important. And then another thing that was a little weird, you can only store your weapons and your first aid sprays. Mm-hmm. You can't store anything else.
Yeah.
You can't store attachments. You can't store any grenades. You can't anything. The only thing is
supplies,
guns and first
ammo.
aid spray. That's it.
I kind of like that.
It's an interesting choice.
It's an interesting choice, and I'm like the inventory size has been adjusted to fit. Mm-hmm. But I kind of liked it because it made me use things more. I'm like, well, I want to. A lot of times I will just let hand grenades like languish in the storage and stuff. But in this, I used it because I was like, well, I want more space back in my inventory, so I guess I'll throw some grenades at people. And like, I was like, oh, right,
okay.
that worked. that worked out. Yeah. Like, I haven't disliked that, really, in the end. Yeah. It is a weird choice.
Yeah.
But, like...
They've never really done it that way before.
But I don't hate it.
There were some times where I really needed an inventory slot, and I didn't want to just waste a grenade.
Yeah, I mean, that's happened a couple... But for the most part, like, I felt like it kept me using the resources and making more ammo use it, so I didn't have all the little... small and large resources sitting around all the time. Yep. Like, I felt like it prompted me to not hoard things. And in the end, I think the game has been better for it.
Yeah.
And partly that's just because of how I usually play. I usually do play to hoard everything in case I need it. And then I'm like, I'm the one that's on the final boss in an RPG, and I've got 99 health potions that I've never used.
I mean, I do that too.
And I wouldn't even have them use them anyway because they don't do enough to matter at this late point in the game.
I mean, with Resident Evil games in the past, I'm the guy who finishes the game with like 5 rocket launcher ammos and like all these acid rounds that I never used because I kept thinking I was going to need them for some impossible boss that never appeared.
Mm-hmm. So and even if you do, the storage box is all the way back there. I'm just going to fight him.
I should change and alter how I play these games because you're right. Ultimately, you should just use the weapons they give you.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I didn't like was like if I'm not using this kind of weapon, I'd rather not waste the space in my inventory on like submachine gun rounds when I don't have a submachine gun.
Yeah.
But like, I would like to store them till later in case I do, and you can't. You have to. You just sort of have to keep.
I did that with the bolt shooter.
Yeah,
same. I got it at first, thought I was going to use it, ended up not using it.
Didn't like it. Now I got bolts sitting around.
I just ended up just throwing it away basically, which sucks. Another thing that's really important about this: you can use items and craft with them where they sit in the world, so you don't have to add it to your inventory beforehand. That's a big deal. A lot of Resident Evil games won't let you affect things that are sitting in the world. You have to wait until you put them in your inventory and then use them. But in this game, if you find an herb, you can combine the herb with an herb in your inventory without having to add it to your inventory.
You don't have to find the slot in the inventory first.
That's a huge change. It makes a world of difference in this game. Like, I didn't have to leave stuff behind.
You could do that in the remake of 2.
Could you?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Well, I just played it 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
And
Fresh
that
in
was
your memory.
And then going back to a RE1 remake, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the biggest things I had to get used to.
It's so dumb.
Is that I can't just pick up a red herb and combine it with the green herb in my inventory. I have to pick up the red herb in my inventory and then combine them that way. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
It's been that way for a long time.
Oh, that was standard Resident Evil. That was standard survival horror period because of Resident Evil setting the standard for that. But no, in the remakes you've been able to do that. It is one of the greatest quality of life changes in the Resident Evil remakes.
Makes a huge difference. Matt, why do you think Resident Evil 4, even its an original version, manages to make the escort mission awesome? Every other game, escort missions suck. This is a whole game that's an escort mission, and it's incredible. What is it that they do that makes it work?
I think it's a combination of giving you some control over what Ashley does.
But not too much.
Not too much, but also the fail state for it is very generous.
Yeah.
Like, you can chase some dude who's carrying her, like, across most of the map half the time, and you won't lose the game.
Yeah.
Granted, there's situations where if she gets captured, you're surrounded by enough guys that you probably just die and start over.
I just die on purpose. Yeah.
Just let them beat you to death and try it again.
Yeah.
Especially that first escape from the church.
Yeah.
Is a rough introduction.
It is. It's like, hello.
Yeah. I'm like, oh,
well,
right.
At first I was like, this is all broken because I couldn't get her through that graveyard. Mm-hmm. Like, no matter which route I took, and because you have two options. You can choose for her to stay close or to kind of stick back. It didn't matter whether I had her stay close or stayed back. She just always stayed back and would get caught by enemies. And by the time I get to her, she was gone.
Yeah,
like,
my solution to that ended up being what my solution is in all of this game. I just killed everybody.
Yeah.
I said, stay here. I'm going to murder
just going to kill
everyone.
And then we'll walk away.
And then we're going to leave.
Yep.
Oh, there's one guy with a Molotov cocktail. No, there isn't.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Man, there's nothing more.
Her AI's pretty smart too. Like,
yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
It just seems like
it's nothing more satisfying though when you shoot a guy's dynamite in his hand and kill like 6 people at once.
I mean, there's a lot of satisfying moments playing this game. Like I said earlier, the B-roll where I shot the axe. There was another moment that I didn't record where I shot an axe as it was thrown at me. It deflected from my bullet and hit an enemy and hurt the enemy. Mm. So the gameplay in this is mostly really effing awesome. Yeah. Like, the new parries and all that, it changes everything, makes the game so much better. And again, like I mentioned, like all these little things that you can do, it's a little bit like Breath of the Wild in that it's all live. Like, all the physics are live. Like, if you can do something, you can do it. Like, you can deflect anything, by the way. You can parry like them throwing a grenade at you. You can shoot a grenade out of midair. You can shoot the dynamite out of midair. Like, I shot
the Molotov cocktail out of midair, and it rained fire down on the guys who were approaching me.
Yeah, it's like a little sandbox that you fill. I never got sick of the combat in this. All the way to the end, I was still excited about each skirmish. And the enemies slowly evolve over time that force you to learn new tactics. Like, they bring out the shield guys. Suddenly you realize that the shotgun that you started the game with isn't good anymore because it couldn't destroy the shield. So then I upgraded to, what was the next one? The striker, maybe? What's the second one that they offer to you?
For what?
Second shotgun.
I can't remember the name of it.
So they give me the second one. That blasts through shields. And then it becomes like, okay, guy with shield comes at me, switch to the shotgun, blast his shield away, switch to the pistol, headshot. It becomes this rhythm, this dance that you do with the enemies. Now, 95% of the time, it's awesome. But when enemies get close to you, it turns into a shit show.
Yeah,
it's like you might as well just die and just start over at the checkpoint.
Yeah, one of my gripes with this game is like with how much they updated a bunch of stuff. I wish they had updated Leon's movement about 10%.
Yeah,
more.
It needs a little bit of a tweak.
Leon needs a dodge roll.
He's also slow as shit.
He is very slow.
He can't run like. He's not a
early on. I learned like, okay,
soon.
so like, because I mean, look, just years of being trained by basically Souls games. It's like I keep hitting the B button to get out of the way. And the worst thing is in a couple enemies you can do that. Like
every once in a while.
Like especially the big guys with the hammers and stuff. Uh-huh. You do have a B evade dodge. Like he'll duck under things, but he doesn't with a normal.
Yeah, it's odd
character. And I'm like, so you got to click the stick and run away. Like you can run like towards the camera and get away. That'll usually work.
Or I would like sometimes ducking up and down. actually get through a crowd.
Yeah, ducking lets you dodge their lunges usually. But he needed more dedicated, like,
it just got weird.
Agility.
It was borderline broken when you got surrounded by enemies.
It's just a little silly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what I said, like when we talked about the demo and about one of the reasons that I don't find any game scary, but particularly I don't find this one scary because largely it's an action movie.
Yeah.
But also, like, I'm not afraid of the Ganados coming up close to Leon. I'm just annoyed because in a real situation you would fucking kick those people or like push. Like Leon doesn't have a get off me move and he desperately needs one.
I mean, you should just let him do his other melee stuff or suplexes and stuff up close. And by the way, man, I only landed one suplex the whole game, and it has to be one of the most satisfying things I have done in a video game in years. Like, I don't just one time. In the whole time I played it, things set up perfectly for me to suplex somebody. And when it happened, I literally cheered out loud. I went, yeah!
There's a lot of good moments. Like,
actually, stuff like that happens all the time.
One of my favorite things was, like, it was an accident, but I was running from some guy trying to get some space, and I saw some yellow barrels. I'm like, well, I also need ammo, so maybe there's ammo in there. And I hit the thing, and he does this overdramatic roundhouse kick to like knock the, and when he did it, his foot happened to connect with the guys it was chasing me and knocked them both over. And I'm like, I love that animation there's a lot of games where that animation wouldn't do anything but break the barrels and not interact with the other characters, but in this it does. And I'm like, that was a pretty great moment. I didn't intend to do it, but I felt really smart for doing that thing by accident.
Well, there's a strategy behind using the roundhouse kick in how you orient yourself to the enemies, because it's a crowd control ability. And so if you're smart with it, once you set one guy up for the roundhouse kick, if you angle yourself correctly as you come in for the kick, you can line up a bunch of other guys and take down like 3 or 4 dudes with one roundhouse kick. And that did feel a little loosey-goosey to me. Like, I got to the point where I'm like, okay, the guys are all on the left-hand side of this enemy. I'm going to come in from the right to line up the guys behind him. And sometimes the kick would still, like, kick him straight instead of kick him at the angle that I came in from. That could be tweaked.
It's hard to know, a little bit like Dark Souls, it's hard to know when behind is behind.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of unreliable stuff, but overall, man, like the emergent stuff that just happens in this little sandbox that they've created is awesome. And these moments just pop up unexpectedly.
Even when I've had to redo sections like the chase out of the church, once it starts, it never unfolded the same way.
No,
twice.
It was different every time.
Yeah.
The enemies were never in the same place. They never did the same thing. Like
they start in the same places. Like the same guy, the same woman's right there in front of the church. The same guy with a torch comes into the gate. But as soon as the action starts, it all goes out the window.
It can all go to hell. You have really no idea. It's really great, man. Like, I'm a gameplay first guy, and I love the living hell out of this gameplay. Cinetyke, there's a suplex? How do you do it? Exactly. Like, you have to down a guy, and he has to be in a very specific position, and you have to come in from behind. And that's how it happened. I saw suplex, and I was like, oh my god! And I ran as fast as I could over to... Because the worst part of this game is, like, Leon runs so slowly that you'll stagger somebody... And you go to run, and like a second before you get to them,
you're like, dude, like you got to be somewhere. Come on, Leon.
And by the time you get there, it's too late, and then the enemy gets like in a cheap shot. But yeah, Cinetyke, it was just all luck that I finally landed a suplex. It wasn't really anything that I had done. I had just everything lined up, the stars aligned, and I managed to pull one off, and it was amazing. There's other little, like, kind of niggling issues other than, the CQC, the close quarters combat kind of is weird. And, again, I think you should be able to use the kick whenever you want to. But then there's some sections that are just complete garbage where you're just going to die. Like, there's one part where there's, like, a big pile of boulders, and you put the TNT on it, and, like, the boulders roll at you and just kill you instantly. There's another section in the game where you walk down this path, and boulders fall from the cliff on the left and just kill you instantly.
That was just Resident Evil back then. Like, again, playing the RE1 remake, there's a lot of stuff like that in there. It's that trial and error thing. It's like, oh, you didn't know that this was going to, And I hadn't say, it was worse then because at least this thing auto-saves pretty commonly. I lost like an hour of progress because I was like, I don't worry about saving into this thing. And I forgot that you have to electrocute the giant shark before you jump down and get that.
Right.
And it was instant death, and that was it. And I'm like, it doesn't care. It doesn't. This is not as far. How long after one is this? Like 7 years? 8
roughly,
years?
Yeah.
Like this is not that long.
Yeah. Yep.
Resident Evil 1 felt ancient when this game came out, but honestly, that wasn't that long. It wasn't a huge span of time that separates this game from that game.
Yeah. there's little weird things like, why am I shooting locks off doors? Like, why? Like, just let me open the door. Like, why are you making me waste one round and, like, put my gun
there's
out?
also an element of, like, there is not a chance in hell that door would hold up to a kick from a grown man. Like, it's just like, there's moments where I'm just like, just break it, dude. Like, who cares? Like I really think you could pry the sticks, like, surrounding the key in the shrine apart and just, it's held together by deer sinew, dude. Like, fucking shoot it. Like,
now, one thing you can't do with things in the world is you can't load your guns with ammo that is in the world. Which is annoying. And that is an old hangover.
You have to pick it up first.
You have to get it in your inventory first. Yeah, you can't just, like, load your gun off of something that you're trying to pick up. That's a little bit annoying.
I guess I never thought to want to do that.
Yeah. And then one thing that I really liked,
I did not have a problem with ammo in this game. Like,
seems like there's plenty because you can craft your own.
That's key, and that's also why I don't mind the fact that the enemies tend to respawn. Or there's going to be more enemies when you come back through an area, or there's more of them in general.
Yeah.
Because I can craft, thanks to the gunpowder thing, I can craft the type of ammo I want to use.
Yeah.
You're not beholden to how many handgun bullets you find, or how many shotgun bullets you find, or how many rifle bullets you find. If you want to use the rifle and the pistol for the fight with the giant, you can craft a bunch of ammo for that, even if you haven't found it. And that I feel like I have control over that, and I'm not at the mercy of where ammo's been placed, and so I don't mind that. I think the gunpowder crafting system in this is a great addition, and obviously they've had that in the previous remakes. Yeah. But I think this is the best implementation of it by
far. I also love how it handles enemies becoming hosts for the parasite. So there's moments, you probably saw in the B-roll earlier, where there's like little spider things that crawl around, and they'll jump up on a ganado and like try to drill into their brain. Well, if you start shooting them, it becomes this weird thing where you're like, should I shoot the parasite or should I shoot the ganado? And at what moment does the parasite take over the ganado to where I should start focusing on shooting the ganado instead of shooting the parasite? And it's this weird mental gymnastics that you do in the middle of combat while it's happening. Again, just emergent stuff that just happens while you're playing. We're like, what the hell? I've never had to think like that in my life while playing a video game. Just really cool, interesting moments that just pop up out of nowhere. I mentioned earlier about how some scenarios are just set up for instant fail to just kill you. There's also some that are just mean-spirited. Like, at that farm in the early part of the game, like, they use the bear traps in this so evilly, man.
And, like,
they'll introduce an enemy, like, an
enemy.
And they
know it, too, because Leon will get trapped and be like, ugh. Like, he's as annoyed as you are.
Right, so you're walking, there's no enemies, and an enemy pops up. And what's going to happen? You're human. You're going to focus on the enemy. You pull out your gun, you set up the enemy, and they put a damn bear trap on the ground right in front of you. They do crap like that all the time.
I mean, that's smart trap laying.
I guess. I mean, I found some of the stuff to
That's what traps are for, Shane.
I found some of the stuff to be a little bit mean-spirited. And Barry Lomax brings up a good point. They don't do any damage. They just delay you, which is, sometimes they grab you and you have to shake out of
that. Don't they? Because I swear I lost life on a couple of them.
No, they don't actually do any health damage at all. Yeah. I checked like 5 different times to make sure.
Well, then I care even less.
Yeah. And so I tried to use the bolt gun, and like you place mines with it. But one thing that drove me crazy is
what are you supposed to do here?
Nothing.
I wanted this. Now I'm cornered by 5 guys. What is the solution here? I guess just
I got
use up your
lucky
knife.
that he grabbed me, which allowed me to do the toss that pushed the guy's back.
Yeah, here's
it's all like
you kick through the door. There he is.
What do you say?
There's the chainsaw guy kicking through the door.
Yeah. Well, if you do certain things in this section, he'll either kick through the door or he won't. If you go to the safe house and try to board up the safe house, then he just shows up in the courtyard and fires up the chainsaw and comes after you. If you languish in the village, then he busts through the door and comes in.
And I said, did you see the thing about with the bell?
Yeah, you told me that. I didn't know it.
Yeah, if you it's probably like more of a new game plus because it helps to have a rifle with a scope. But if you shoot the church bell, it ends the fight.
Yeah, I had no idea. You can shoot the bell in the tower.
And it just starts, because when the bell rings, they all go back into church. If you just shoot the bell, that's the end of the chase. The chainsaw guy won't even come out.
Yeah. It's, again, this game just has all kinds of cool little stuff like that hidden in it if you just fiddle around with. Again, it's like everything's alive in this world. Everything's there. It's real. How you interact with it is how things play out.
Leon's not alive anymore.
Well, not anymore. And that's another thing that's great about this game, the kill animations. Like, I made sure to include some of those in the B-roll so you guys can see them, because for a lot of Resident Evil fans, it's one of the highlights. How all the different ways that Leon or whoever can get killed. And there's some pretty cool ones in this game, to be sure. What else? So I was talking about upgrading weapons. I also found myself a lot of cases, I was afraid to spend the big money on the last couple upgrades on a weapon, because I was always afraid that the next time I came back to the merchant, there was going to be a better gun there that I was going to need to buy, and then spend all that money on the first, 3 levels of upgrades to get it up to speed, versus the old weapon. It's kind of like this yin and yang that you go through with playing this game and deciding whether you want to upgrade weapons or not. I could get to the next merchant, and all of a sudden he has the next shotgun that I need or whatever, but I really want to upgrade my pistol right now. It's, again, mental gymnastics that you go through trying to figure out what's the best course to get through the game. Here's something that happened to me that was kind of crazy, if talking about kind of emergent stuff that just happened. So I killed Menendez, and by the way, I like the old Menendez better from the original RE4. He just seemed more evil and mean to me than he is in this one. He's more of like a cartoon character in this, I felt like. But anyway, I killed Menendez, the boss fight, in the barn, and first try, I would add, and I'm jumping down, and the barn is on fire. I jumped down, I accidentally touched the flames, and it killed me, and I had to start the boss fight all over, and then I couldn't beat him. I ended up fighting him 8 more times before I beat him the second time. I beat him the first time, and then couldn't beat him 7 straight tries, which also shows you the variables in this game and how each skirmish is different. Just because you made it through one time doesn't mean you're going to be able to make it through a second time, to your point earlier about how, 2 skirmishes never play out the same way in this game. So, or how, a single skirmish will never play out the same way twice in this game. Even when it comes down to boss fights. There's X factors in there that can mix things up for you. What else? I mentioned no fast travel. I found that to be really annoying. It's so simple. They do give you, this weird... I don't know if you're even there yet. But they do give you this weird, train car that you can use that will kind of take you back to the beginning of the castle. You still have to go back through a part of the castle and then the whole village section to get back to the beginning of the game. But there's no fast travel in this. It really could use it. Just let you travel to each merchant. Once you unlock a merchant, you can travel to that merchant. That makes too much sense to me. I'm not sure why they didn't include it in this, but it's not, and that was a little annoying. And then were you surprised that the typewriters don't matter in this?
Oh, I mean, that's also where the storage is and stuff.
But, what's the point of having them? Because the checkpoints in this are very generous. And you don't need to save at the typewriters at all. And I regretted it at the end of the game because it hurt my ranking, how many times I had saved. So you don't have to save at the typewriters in this. It just auto-saves at
Yeah, the auto-save is very active.
Yeah. So, if you haven't played this yet, don't sweat, saving at typewriters.
Yeah, I pretty much I only really manually save between chapters.
Yeah, and it offers that after you finish a chapter if you want to save. So I think they just left it in for nostalgia's sake.
Yeah, I think it's just there for continuity.
Yeah. And then the graphics. You'll be glad to know that they toned down the rain significantly in the final version of the game.
Yeah, the rain doesn't look bad anymore.
As we thought, it was an easy tweak, and they tweaked it, and it looks fine now. I had problems, and maybe this didn't happen to you, Matt. I had problems with my OLED shutting off playing this game. If there was a big explosion, so the one section where you have the trebuchets and they're basically launching these huge bombs onto you.
Yeah.
Anytime one of those bombs hit me, my TV shut off. If the screen would go white, the TV just shut off. I could replicate it every time.
My guess would be that that's a variable resolution thing, and your TV is not adjusting to the resolutions, or your TV is actually trying to adjust the resolution switch, but it's not supposed to.
It's weird.
It's
doesn't happen with any other game but this one. And I could replicate it over and over again. All I had to do was let one of the bombs hit me, and if the screen went completely white, my TV just shut off.
Yeah, I mean, that hasn't happened to me, but I'm playing on PC. So I assume, presumably, that monitor is more prepared for something like that.
Yep.
But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if my TV did that too, because it has that same thing where the variable refresh rate happens, and sometimes it goes black for a couple seconds.
So I just had to be on guard to hit pause very quickly, because once the screen goes dark, you have no idea what's happening. So you just hit pause and just hope that something didn't happen while you weren't watching. Cutscenes in the game, there are some that are pre-rendered. In fact, all the good ones are pre-rendered because he always has the same handgun in every cutscene, and I actually ended up selling that handgun like a couple hours into it. I didn't even have the handgun anymore, and in the cutscenes it's showing the old handgun.
Yeah,
so.
by the time he first confronts the big guy in the hat,
Menendez, yeah.
He loses the gun, and I was like, oh, that's not my gun.
Yeah.
That's not the gun I was using.
So the cutscenes were pre-rendered. That's a little weird and a little lazy for 2023, but whatever. That's just nitpicking. And then, I don't know if you even played with surround sound, Matt, but I thought the surround sound in this sucked.
I didn't play
like
surround.
The directional surround sound?
I don't have surround sound on my PC. No.
Oh. Well, the directional surround sound in this was terrible. Like, you could never tell where the enemy sounds were coming from.
Backbeat says the typewriters are for professional difficulty where there is no autosave.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. That makes sense then. But didn't you think maybe they just remove it for other difficulties instead of having them there? I don't know.
I mean, that's a lot of work to do a whole... Well, it doesn't... Who cares?
Yeah. But anyway, I thought the surround sound in this sucked. The directional stuff, like, I never felt like it was actually working accurately and telling me where the enemies were off screen.
I'm trying to... I can't think of... I mean, mine does like a simulation of, the stereo simulation of 3D audio or whatever. I can't think of really... sound really hasn't made much of an impression on me one way or the other.
Well, I think the sound's great, like as far as the actual audio and the Foley work and the sound effects and the voiceover, but it's just how it's mixed together directionally in surround. And I tried 3 different surround sound modes to see if it got better. It didn't get better. So, big complaints with that. That's something that I actually pay attention to because I have a pretty awesome surround sound setup. And I could never tell where the enemies were coming from the direction of the sound, which I found pretty odd. And then value-wise...
I could tell that. I could tell where they're... Like, if I heard a guy talking, I could tell he was over here or over there.
Not for me, man. And sometimes it would be like, I'd hear him on the right, and they were actually on the left. Like,
that didn't happen.
There's all kinds of goofy stuff.
I don't use the sound as that much of a cue that often, but a couple times I've heard them, and I've known there's another one like over there, so I'm going to angle this way.
Interesting.
And that has worked a couple times.
Didn't work for me.
But again... who knows how the PS5 is outputting things versus the PC is outputting. That stuff can be your setup. It can be the system. It can be God knows.
Well, also,
remember the time? What was it? There was some Star Wars game where they reversed. It was a movie. It was one of the Star Wars movies on I think Blu-ray. They flipped the whole surround channel. So like. All the sounds that were supposed to be coming out of the left are coming out of the right, and vice versa. And I'm like, that's Star Wars.
Wow, what a monumental!
They invented that stuff. That was THX.
See, actually, right here you can see where he, instead of coming through the fence, he just appears in the.
I've never been in there. I think every time I play the demo in this, I was.
So you went back and got the shotgun out of the house afterwards, then?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. It took me about 18 hours to complete. That's great. Like, for a $60, $70 game, I'm totally fine with 18 to 20 hours to play.
With replay. I mean,
there's
reasons to play this
afterwards.
Again.
You get a bunch of cosmetics that you can use to play. You have your entire arsenal that you can play with. So now you're playing the village with a rocket launcher or whatever other weapons you got for your first playthrough.
Now you're playing with power.
Yep. And I think I may play this again. It's that good. I enjoyed it that much. I think in general, what I would say is that this game is way better than the original in pretty much every conceivable way.
Yeah.
I didn't really miss anything from the original game at all.
No.
Nothing that they removed.
I'm not familiar enough with it. The only thing I missed is the red dot sight, is the laser, the laser sight. Yeah. I wish the laser sight's still attached to pretty much everything.
Yeah, it's a little more picky now what you can attach it to.
But that's about it. That's my only main...
The Krauser boss knife fight, way better in this than it was. It's not some weird QTE thing anymore. It's a real, active, combat situation that you fight him in. I did like the old Mendez better. That's about the only thing I can say that I like more about the original that I liked about this game. And in fact, I would say in general, I was surprised, honestly, how little had changed. It is a very faithful...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they needed to change too much.
Yeah.
Like, this game is still, the original game is still one of the best games ever made.
Yeah.
And
that's what I would say. After playing this, it is one of the best games ever made, Matt. This game came out in 2005. And it's one of the best games I've played in the last 12 months in 2022 and 2023. We were right, dude, back in 2005 when we were like, this is one of the best games ever. And it's gonna be one of the best games ever.
I saw somebody point out that it was the current releases or whatever, and it was this, Tales of Symphonia and Metroid Prime Remastered, and they're like, the GameCube's having a great 2023.
That's funny. Yep. So anyway, this game is just incredible. Like I recommend everybody go buy this. Like if you're squeamish or whatever, maybe don't buy it. But it's absolutely incredible. It's one of the best action games ever made. Still, after all this time, I just had a blast playing this. I couldn't stop, Matt. I literally could not stop. And when the game ended, I was sad. I can't say that about a game, and I don't know how long. Where I got to the end and I wasn't like, whew. Because we have to grind through these games. You know, we can't just play them at our leisure like a lot of people can. And a lot of times, you know, you learn to account for it and how you evaluate games. But still, at the end of games, sometimes you're dragging your ass across the finish line. No such thing in this game, man. When it ended, I was like, no, I want more. And it sounds like there's going to be DLC for this, which means you are going to get more.
Well, mercenaries stuff.
Yeah, I thought there might be a story, something or other for this. No?
I mean, presumably they would do that Ada side story thing. Yeah,
I thought there might be. And if it sells really well, maybe they'll reconsider.
I would not be surprised if they did that. I don't know if they've said one way or the other whether that's happening. I know Mercenaries is coming in like a week and a half.
I think they announced it. It's called like Separate Ways or something.
Is that what it is?
It's about you splitting with Ada, basically. Yeah, I thought for sure I read that somewhere. So anyway, I wholeheartedly recommend this game. I freaking loved it. I loved it back in 2005. I love it just as much, if not more, now. Are you in agreement with that? You recommend people buy it?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, for my money, I think it's the best game of the year so far.
It is, yeah. It really is. And I hope it's not ultimately. I
don't think it will be, but like,
yeah,
you know, it's man. I mean, it's based on one of the maybe the best game of that generation.
Yeah,
it's up there.
It was, yeah.
I'd have to really look at the other games that came out in that generation, but like certainly, it's certainly the best GameCube game for my money. So like, yeah, like they didn't fuck it up.
They didn't.
Like they did it all right. You know, I mean, I wasn't too worried about that in the first place, but I mean,
OCD Master's asking Game of the Year.
So far, it's in the conversation.
I mean, this Hogwarts Legacy is up there for me too. But already this year is off to a great start.
Yeah, the nominee list for Game of the Year this year is going to be a murderer's row. I think you got that, you got Hogwarts, you got maybe Starfield, you have Zelda, you have Jedi Survivor, Spider-Man 2. There's a lot of heavy hitters still coming up. Like it's gonna be a year and a half right here. Like it ain't gonna be 2022 again. I'll tell you that much.
Some people are saying that the cutscenes weren't pre-rendered. That Leon and I don't know if costumes. They might have just pre-rendered the costumes in those cinematics as well.
That would be more work than just doing it real time.
Yeah.
Like and that would take up so much space.
That's weird that they wouldn't switch the gun, though.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't switch the gun. Also, it wouldn't make sense because you can change the costume, so why would you switch? The pre-renders would have to switch him back to the costume.
Like, I can understand you can't switch, so if Leon's using, like, an SMG.
Yeah, my guess is that the reason that is because they want him to be having the pistol, and, like,
right. If they don't want to reanimate it for
if you're not using a pistol and you're holding a shotgun, they don't want to read it, so it's just going to, they're just going to pretend that's his default gun. So, which is fine. Like, they didn't seem pre-rendered to me.
God of Gamblers 33. Leon shoots the bell and cancels the Separate Ways DLC.
Yeah. Well, he's tired of being left behind.
AJ the Legend Watson, would you suggest those who never played the original RE4 do so, or is this now the definitive version?
Oh, this is the definitive
I would
version.
not go back and play the old RE4. I really can't think of any reason to.
I would say play this, and then if you want to, go back and play the original and just see how close it is.
Yeah.
See how little of it had to be updated. How much it's still very similar in
stands
experience.
up after all this
but
time.
It's just this one obviously has modern tech graphics presentation.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to be a smoother play in 2023.
Yeah.
But
Kevin Rafa, are there any QTEs in the game? Yes. There are moments where you have to like mash the X button to break out of like holds and there's stuff like that, but there's no like.
And if you consider like, press X when you run up to melee somebody,
right.
It's not a real-time melee, it's technically a QT. But there's nothing like in the original where you're like. And there is, I guess there is, like, when you get up on the back of the giant to kill the worm thing, you do have to hammer the R1 button to
there's
slash.
There's like button mashing QTEs, but that's.
But there's nothing like the fight with Krauser isn't like that was a full Q. That was a Shenmue fight. Basically.
Somebody in chat said that they like that, that they like that battle. that they're upset that it's not a QTE battle anymore. Our Robert Diana 21, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. That's awesome.
El Guapo's correct. The game of that generation is Shadow of the Colossus. That's my favorite game of all time. Sometimes I forget.
I would disagree with that, but different strokes for different folks.
Sometimes I forget that's the same
It is
era.
the same gen. Yep. So there you go. That's the Resident Evil 4 remake, another contender for Game of the Year in 2023. Now, I would just say in general, when it gets to the end of the year, if I have a game that I enjoyed equally to Resident Evil 4, I will pick the new original game over Resident Evil 4. If this were a little more different than the original, if it actually strayed more away from the original, I might reconsider that.
Or
but
if Resident Evil 4 didn't exist and this just came out out of nowhere,
right?
It would be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Like, it would be a renaissance for the series.
Absolutely, for the series still. And it's old. It's crazy that they've made games after RE4 that were nowhere near as good as RE4 and on every level. So that's 2 thumbs up from GameFace for the Resident Evil 4 remake. Again, it's plenty long enough. You're not going to feel like you got ripped off.
Backby makes a good point. Baldur's Gate 3. This versus Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know. I have to play the final version of Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is going...
You've already played it.
I have, but like Baldur's Gate 3 has gone through a lot of changes and tweaks and updates and new classes. And I mean, it's hit the point where I'm like, I'm just not going to touch Baldur's Gate 3 until it goes 1.0 in August. But yeah, that's another that'll be in Game of the Year conversations without question, I think, unless they completely screw something up in the next 3 months. Yeah. Which I don't think they will. Like,
there's gonna be like 6 or 7.
Diablo 4.
Yeah. There's gonna be 6 or 7 contenders for Game of the Year.
Jeff's gonna have to Oscar style expand the Game of the Year nominee list to 10 or something.
Yeah,
it's
gonna be
a lot.
Tough year, no doubt about it. And this is just another one to add onto the pile. Swan Senpai, does this get you excited for the 5 remake?
Well, let's see if the 5 remake exists first.
I don't think that's going to happen.
There are apparently elements of the mercenaries thing that imply that 5 might be on their next on their target list. I think they should go back and give this modern remake treatment to Resident Evil 1.
Agreed.
I think having 1 through 4 all given this treatment is the best smart.
Because RE5 is the not best that old.
Smart. What the hell is wrong with me? Is the best smart. What did I just say?
RE5 isn't that old. Like, I don't think it needs remake.
I think RE5 needs a redo just because it sucks.
It's not very good.
I don't think 6 is salvageable. I think leave 6 for what it is. 6 is ridiculous. 6 is the logical endpoint of people not understanding why 4 was great, making something they're trying to compete with 4 with, and just missing the target in every imaginable way.
It was Resident Evil potpourri.
Yeah.
It's like they just grabbed little elements from all the different games and put them in one.
The fact that the 6 in the logo accidentally looks like a giraffe getting a blowjob is the perfect... It's the perfect emblem for that game. I think 6 needs to stand forever as this like weird pinnacle of like, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Just play the next one and see that we figured it out, you know?
Yeah. Mr. Starwalker says, I want Code Veronica too. You might want to go back and play Code Veronica.
Code Veronica is garbage.
It's really not good.
Which is funny because at the time I thought it was the best one.
Well, yeah, because it was visually,
it was 3D. It was mind-blowing. It was the first time it played as well as Silent Hill.
Yeah,
they got rid of the tank controls to some degree. Yeah. But you go back and I remember going back to try to play that when they put it out, the X version on Xbox 360, and even my friends who were like die-hard Resident Evil horror game, like it's all they play is survival horror. They couldn't wait for Code Veronica. It's the best one. I can't wait to play it. They all gave up in one night. Yeah. They're like, "Oh no, this is not playable anymore. It's just terrible." And it's not an important story in the series. I think
canon. Yeah.
Redo 1, so you have 1 through 4 in this. Honestly, all 3 of these remakes have been top quality.
They really have. Yeah.
I don't even like Resident Evil 3 very much, but that is a great remake of that game.
They did a great job on it. Yep.
Do that to 1. You got basically a flawless modern version of 1 through 4. You can bring forward for generations to come.
Yep.
And then do whatever you want. Like remake 5, remake 0.
0 probably would be the better
0
one.
could probably use it more than anything else. Yeah.
Agreed. Yep. So there you go. That's the Resident Evil 4 remake. Next up, I just realized that I misspoke earlier when I said that the biggest game announcement of the week was the 2K kart racing game, because the biggest game announcement of the week was Counter-Strike freaking 2. Out of nowhere, seemingly, Valve is like, here you go. Here's Counter-Strike 2. The crazy part is it's coming out, like, really soon. Are you a big Counter-Strike fan, Matt? Did you play it a lot back in the day?
I have played about 5 minutes of Counter-Strike.
Okay. Like every place I've ever worked, Counter-Strike would be a thing off and on.
I cannot emphasize to you enough how much Counter-Strike is not a thing I care about.
Yeah. Well, you don't really like shooters either. So.
I don't like shoot, but also this is the most bare bones, boring implementation of what a multiplayer shooter can be.
And for some reason, it's
I think
colossal.
I think that's why it's colossal, because it's very pure.
That could be.
I just don't care about the thing it's pure.
Yeah.
But I get, I know all the dust jokes and all that. I get it, but I didn't know. This is not. Also, prediction: this will come and it will go, and Counter-Strike 1 will remain king.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is coming this summer as a free upgrade to Counter-Strike Go. There's a closed beta.
If it's an upgrade, maybe it doesn't matter then.
Yeah, there's a closed beta happening for the big-time players right now.
You don't have to buy it?
I think it's free, yeah.
Then, I guess this will just be what Counter-Strike is from now on.
It does seem like they're trying to make sure they do not lose people. Because you can bring your entire CSGO inventory with you in a Counter-Strike 2.
I mean, that's smart. You got to do that.
Not only will you keep every item you've collected over the years.
You can't make people start over.
Yeah.
After how many years?
God.
When did Counter-Strike come out?
I don't even know. I mean, it was like a mod for Half-Life.
Yeah.
Or Half-Life 2. Was it Half-Life or Half-Life 2?
It was Half-Life 1.
Yeah, I think it was.
This and Team Fortress were like the big mods for Half-Life.
Yeah. And they've both become big games on their own. So you can keep your whole collection, but they'll all benefit from the Source 2 lighting and materials. In addition to supporting legacy models and finishes, all stock weapons are upgraded with high-resolution models, and some weapon finishes take advantage of the new models. From the UI to the gameplay, all the visual effects have been completely reimagined with an all-new look and behavior for water, explosions, fire, smoke, muzzle flashes, bullet tracers, impact effects, all that stuff has all been reworked. Valve has completely reauthored explosions, fire, C4 lighting, everything. Like, they've completely reworked the entire thing in the Source Engine 2. Smoke grenades are insane now. They're dynamic, volumetric objects that interact with the environment. And Matt, when you shoot through the fog, it creates a hole in the fog that you can then keep seeing through and keep shooting through. That's pretty freaking cool, man.
That's a cool effect.
So that's one of the big additions, the new smoke grenades and how they're handling smoke in the game. Smoke now has the ability to interact with other gameplay events, creating new opportunities. Bullets and grenades push the smoke as well. Now the smoke can seep out of opened doorways, which can add cover. So if you drop smoke inside, it could actually seep outside and keep people from peeking inside the building that you're inside. It also just fills up volumetrically.
It's like smoke.
Yeah, it acts like real smoke. Yep. The tick rate no longer matters for moving, shooting, or throwing. Sub-tick updates are now the heart of Counter-Strike 2. Previously, the server only evaluated the world in discrete time intervals called ticks. But thanks to Counter-Strike 2 sub-tick update, architecture servers know the exact instant that motion starts, a shot is fired, or a grenade is thrown. As a result, regardless of the tick rate, your moving and shooting will be equally responsive, and your grenades will always land the same exact way. Big deal. For competitive purposes, anyway. What other features are there?
I'm just curious about how people will react, because nobody reacts to change more poorly than competitive gamers.
You're right.
And changing this thing has been the way it has been forever is bold.
It could be a problem. Yep. They've done a lot of work on the maps. They've upgraded some, they've overhauled some, but generally the maps are cleaner and brighter. Upgrade maps are overhauled maps that have been fully rebuilt from the ground up, and it leverages all the new Source 2 tools and rendering features. There are maps that use new Source 2 lighting, including a physically based rendering system that produces realistic materials, lighting, and reflections. And then there are the touchstone maps, which are the classic maps with solid foundations that players can use to evaluate gameplay changes from CSGO to Counter-Strike 2. So there's a base level map that they're going to supply to people that is exactly like the original game, so people can see the gameplay differences for themselves to decide whether they want to go from the original Counter-Strike over to Counter-Strike 2. And then obviously the Source 2 engine, it just makes the game look vastly superior to the old game. It looks so much better than the original Counter-Strike does. And it's also the Source 2 tools and rendering features will be available for the community. So the community will be able to make their own maps. And and it'll be easier to build them and for them to experiment and iterate. And then there's a Source 2 item workshop is also on the way. So this is going to be a full-featured release pretty much right out of the gate when it comes out this summer. And it's going to have all the stuff from the OG Counter-Strike that, to your point, Matt, that, you know, some big fans may be disappointed. It really appears that they've considered those people at every step in the development of Counter-Strike 2. Mm-hmm. But I'm with you, Matt. I have not been a big Counter-Strike player throughout my life. And again, like, every place I've worked, there has been ebbs and flows of Counter-Strike. You go through this period of 8 months where everybody at work, after work is over, sits and plays Counter-Strike. And then it goes away. Sometimes for like a year or two, and then inevitably it'll pop back up again. There'll be another group, a crew of people that want to play Counter-Strike again. And like, I've never got into it, despite all that, because I do not like round-based first-person shooters where you die and you have to sit and wait. Like, I just don't like modes like that.
That's why I didn't like SOCOM either.
Lots of games. I didn't like that in general. I
remember at G4 when we got there, the game of that nature was Day of Defeat. Everybody played Day of Defeat after work in the game lab all night.
Yeah.
And like, nope.
I never got into it.
The weird thing is, like, no one got into Day of Defeat. Like, people don't even remember that game existed. like you go to databases and it's like, Day of Defeat, what's that? You know, so it's weird that was such a. That was no one was obsessed about Counter-Strike at G4. The people that were G4 before we were there, it was all Day of Defeat. I think you even might have said, like, you know, guys don't play Counter-Strike.
What are you doing playing this crappy ass game? Why don't you play some other game that I have no interest in playing?
You need to elevate your crappy game I don't care about.
Exactly. So anyway, that's a big announcement. Counter-Strike 2, long awaited. Do you think any chance it gets you to consider playing it? Yeah, me either, really.
Is it Half-Life 3? Then no. Yeah. Like, you call me when you're ready, Valve. Don't worry about it.
And again, why are we getting this instead of a Half-Life 3?
I don't know. That's sort of the Valve story. Remember when they announced that stupid card game?
Yeah.
Was that Artifact or something?
Yeah.
And like there was all the build up and da-da-da. I watched that video recently where it's like, and they revealed it's a card game and the whole audience goes, oh. Yeah. It's just
they just intentionally just won't give people what they want. I don't understand it, but they just keep.
I mean, it's part of when the company culture is like, work on it if you want to.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what you're going to end up with. Like, nobody wants to touch the thing that everybody wants. There's too much pressure.
It was encouraging, I'll say this. I mean, it's encouraging that Valve is making games, and it has Counter-Strike 2, and it's ready very soon, and blah, blah, blah. But what was most encouraging was seeing the behind-the-scenes footage of Counter-Strike 2, and seeing how many people are at Valve making games. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a very quick shot where you can see the office, and you can see there's, like, a lot of people working at Valve creating video games, which is a good sign if you're someone like us who has been begging for Half-Life 3 for, the last 20 years now? Mm-hmm. How old is Half-Life 2 now?
Half-Life 2 came out in 2004.
So almost 20 years.
And then, I mean, the episodes took...
Episode 1 and 2.
Took their sweet time.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been
never got Episode 3.
Long. Yeah,
and never got Half-Life 3.
Yeah, Episode 2 ends on a cliffhanger.
Yep. And we've been hanging on that cliff ever since. So anyway, there you go. That is Counter-Strike 2. Our last topic for today's show is the return of GDC. And we mentioned last week that you shouldn't expect a lot of news coming out of GDC because it's typically for developers. That's why it's called the Game Developers Conference. However, as it turned out, a lot of stuff actually came out of GDC, but most of it came from Epic Games, thus the lower third, Epic Con, because it really did turn into an Epic convention. There was the other GDC stuff there. There were the panels that you go to where you learn about how they turned Kirby to 3D from 2D, and they had panels for like the character models in the Dead Space remake. There's stuff like that the developers go to. Stuff for us though, most of it was all in Epic's Epic Unreal press conference, and it was epic. The biggest thing that they showed was the Fortnite Unreal editor. Basically, fans are now going to be able to create their own stuff for Fortnite. And not just their own stuff. As you can see, you'll be able to use elements that take Fortnite way out of bounds from what you're used to. Here you can see this is a gritty, realistic environment with the Fortnite characters in it. This is the type of stuff that you'll be able to build with it. Basically, the Unreal Editor for Fortnite, it's a version of Unreal Engine 5 with customizations to support the creation of content for just Fortnite. With it, you can create props and devices for Fortnite that push the boundaries of the creative toolset. UEFN and UE share a lot of the same tools, but there are differences between the two. And generally, things are just kind of pared down for the Fortnite Unreal Editor so that people like you and I can actually make something worthwhile with it. But as we mentioned earlier with Everywhere and The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, the people who build stuff are the kids or the aspiring game developers. And the kids play Fortnite. So this is a very, very smart implementation of game development tools.
Yeah, this is a solid Trojan horse tech.
This is exactly how you want to do it. Pachter has been saying all along that Epic is going to create the metaverse. He has said it from day one. Even when Facebook launched Meta and said, here's the metaverse, Pac was like, no effing way. It's not the metaverse. There's no metaverse until Epic makes it. Here you go. This is where, because here's the thing, Matt.
This is where it starts.
Because they have the license for all the, that's the other thing, Matt. All the licensed stuff that is in there, you're going to be able to use in this tool. So
Star Wars,
yes,
Batman,
yes.
There was somebody made it was a joke, but somebody made a thing. You know that thing where they have the screen. It's like introducing whoever to Fortnite. Somebody made one for Lady Tar, which is the character that Kate Blanchett plays in Tar. And man, I wasn't sure. I really wasn't sure for a minute.
Yeah,
like they just might.
I know.
Like that's the.
So here's your metaverse that we've all been waiting for. This is where it's going to really come from because they already have all these licenses locked up and they're going to be a part of their metaverse. So this is a huge, huge story. Like I feel like it kind of flew under the radar. People don't really understand the implications of it.
Yeah, I think it'll be more clear once it hits.
And the kids start messing with it. And here's the other thing too. Like this is a good primer before you start working in Unreal Engine 5. Use this first. And get your feet wet. You can figure out whether game development is
That's
for you.
nuts that you can do that, like run around in that while someone's doing that.
Yes, in real time.
Yeah.
And you can have multiple people working on projects at the same time together, Matt. It's revolutionary. It's going to be huge. I know it doesn't really matter how much you like Fortnite or not. This is going to change a lot of stuff. So a big, big deal, really a bombshell from the Unreal Engine press conference at GDC. And then next, they showed what we usually get at GDC, which is whatever is the latest Unreal Engine tech demo. In this case, this is a tech demo for Unreal Engine 5.2. It shows off a new procedural generation tool. In the demo, they're calling it Electric Dreams because it focuses on this Rivian electric truck. But really what the demo serves to show is how, with Unreal Engine 5, you don't have to build stuff by hand anymore. The randomization tools and the logic and the AI that's now built into Unreal Engine 5, you basically just wipe your mouse across the screen and it just creates wilderness. And if you do that and then you zoom in and you're like, hey, I want to create a racing track through this environment, it's very easy to just start pushing the trees back to create the road. And then say, they show in this one part where you come to like a place where you want to split the road to create an alternate path. You literally just drag a big chunk of earth inward and it creates a path around it. And then you can just tweak it with the mouse and it starts creating like all these little pathways up to the butte. It's insane. So they eventually in this, they start pulling back from the environment and they're like, which part of this do you think we built part of this by hand? The rest was built with the randomization tools. Which part is the part that we built by hand? And you cannot tell. So Unreal Engine 5 is about to start automating something that every game has like 5 people working on. So, truth be told,
it's going to cost jobs.
It's going to cost jobs. But that's the way it always is.
Yeah.
It's like with AI. People are like, oh, AI is going to take people's jobs. But somebody is going to have to manipulate the AI. So it takes away a job, it creates a new one, but not as many.
I think it takes away 5 jobs and creates one.
Creates one, right. Yeah. So it's going to have an effect, but it's going to make budgets for games cheaper. So if that keeps games from being raised to $80 for another 15 years, is it worth it?
Maybe this will help Star Citizen.
I doubt it. I think that's a lost cause at this point. So anyway, this was yet another impressive demo. In fact, I'm going to just skim forward really quickly here so you can start seeing some of the stuff that I was talking about with like how they can just very easily use like the mouse to manipulate the terrain. And then they go back down to the truck and they start driving the truck. So here you can see they just pulled this dirt up from the ground and it created this, generated it, and now they're just moving this butte around inside the environment. And the Unreal Engine 5 automatically makes the connections with the existing world that's there. And then they go back down to truck view and you see that everything looks amazing, like up close. It's, again, it's going to change everything. And you're right. It's going to cost people jobs. There's no doubt about it. You would hope that some other jobs are created to replace those jobs, but probably not. Mm-hmm. It's going to make game development cheaper and quicker and easier at the cost of employment for some people. So I think your mileage will vary on that depending on your perspective and depending on if you were hoping to maybe get a job doing something like this in the future. But anyway, another impressive demo of Unreal Engine 5.2.
Did they ever find the charging station?
Oh, for the vehicle?
The electric truck?
That's good, Kyle. But watch this.
I thought that was the point of the... Somewhere in this jungle is a charging station, and you got to find it.
So this is where
that's a real life crisis.
So that was the point where he's like, try to pick out the part of this that we built by hand, and you can't. It's impossible
because it all it's just trees.
Well, that helps. That helps. So anyway, another impressive demo for Unreal Engine 5. And they started getting into specific games. They showed a demo for Lords of the Fallen. All stuff, they kind of show a lot of the
which has now
tools.
Had the name changed again.
It was the Lords of the Fallen.
Now it's just Lords of the Fallen, which is the same title as the first game. So, whatever.
Yeah.
No one remembers the first one.
Yeah.
They shouldn't remember the first one.
And the whole purpose of this was to just show how Unreal Engine 5 can bring a game to life. It shows off its robust character creator, shows off how it created assets, dynamic clothing, real-time lighting.
The first one certainly didn't feel very lively. So
this is appropriate for this game in particular that they would show this off. This game has like two separate worlds. It has like a good world and the evil world. And what the developers of the game said is that Unreal Engine 5 allowed them to develop both sides of the world at the same time while they're looking at both sides of the world. And they said it was immeasurable how much it helped to unify the two worlds into one.
Because it can learn the rules of each world and then just apply what you've done in one world to the other.
And it applies it to the other one at the same time. Again, Unreal Engine 5, not effing around. It is no joke. Then they showed a game called, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, Infinitesimals, I believe.
Can I see it? Do you have it on there?
It's not on there. It's the top one on my sheet there. Infinitesimals, maybe?
Infinitesimals.
Infinitesimals?
Yeah. That's what that is. I think it's a play on infinitesimal. So infinite combined with infinitesimal. Yeah, it's infinitesimal, I think is what they're going for.
It's a third-person action adventure from Qubit Studios where you play...
Probably not the greatest name in the world for a thing you're trying to sell.
We had to debate how to say it. That's never a good sign. It's a third-person action adventure in development from Qubit Studios. You play as Captain Orkney Rellenrake as he and his crew...
Sure.
As he and his crew of minuscule aliens
of the Oxford Rellenrakes, yes, of course.
Well, this is just another small person.
Oh, he's an alien. Okay.
Well, he's an insect alien, but it's another small person, big world game, basically, like Grounded. It's almost like its own cottage industry at this point.
But this looks like it's more of a single player shooter than a multiplayer build-a-fest. So I'm already more interested than I was in Grounded.
And I think this game looks great. Built from the ground up on Unreal Engine 5. We still don't have enough of those at this point, so I'll take whatever we can get. And then they showed a demo for a game we've all been waiting for, Hellblade 2. When the hell are we going to play Hellblade 2?
It's that lady.
Yeah, it's the actor.
It's weird to see her with makeup on.
Yeah, pretty.
Senua does not you generally get done up that way.
Not to get done
War
up
paint,
like that.
yes. Yeah. Lipstick, no.
And all they didn't show the game. They showed off this meta-human animation system that they've been building. And the truth is, they've been building that animation system for a long time.
Yeah.
When they struck out and they said, we want to be a AAA indie studio, they showed off this technology, the meta-human animation, to show how they didn't have to spend a ton of money on facial animation and motion capture anymore. So this tech has been kicking around their studio for years now, but the big thing for this was they are doing this on an iPhone. Their technology is now to the point where it will run on mobile phones, and it's extremely powerful, as you're seeing right here. Like, look how quickly they mapped her face, and they're now animating stuff. And in a second, they start doing, here it is. They start doing a split screen, real time. This is her talking on stage while the program is animating it in real time. Amazing. Again, that's what GDC is all about. Showing off new tech that's going to improve the lives of game developers, provided they don't...
That and announcing Fable.
Yeah, and provided that they don't take their jobs, ultimately. So that
this is equal parts impressive and scary in some ways.
Yep. And then there's a couple smaller things like
somewhere James Cameron is looking at all the mocap shit he did for the Avatar sequels is like shit.
Yep. Don't need to do it anymore with this new tech. And then Microsoft was there. They had a big focus on ID at Xbox, which is their indie imprint. They basically welcome creators on site and online to discover their new tools that they've developed to help create stuff. They built like this brand new tool system on the Azure network called PlayFab. And basically they're at GDC trying to convince people to use their new PlayFab technology to develop games. Or at least get indie developers on board to start making games for ID at Xbox using the technology. And basically it's another middleware stuff that makes it easier to make games. So the technical part of it isn't as a big deal, and it's more about being creative and getting your ideas out with minimal pushback. And then NVIDIA showed off some AI-driven Omniverse stuff for facial animation and development pipeline. They had a bunch of panels about ray tracing and path tracing. And then there were the Game Developers' Choice Awards, and then there was the Independent Game Festival, which are two things that always happen at GDC. And then, as I said, there were all the panels for specific games and things like that. So overall, a pretty good GDC. Mm-hmm. As far as stuff coming out of it that's relevant to our interests. Also, the attendance was gigantic compared to the last several years, obviously, because they didn't have it, and then they had it kind of half-assed last year. So the attendance was back. However, yesterday, or last night on Facebook, I go check on Facebook, and tons of people have COVID.
Yep.
Tons. Like, 7 people on my friends list last night got COVID at GDC.
Yeah, I mean, going to a convention like that at this point where nobody's wearing masks anymore, like...
Yep. What's going to happen?
You're most likely going to run into it.
Yeah. I mean, whether you get it or not, roll the dice.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, like I have definitely been in the room with it several times because I've been at things where people had it, ended up getting it, but I've never had it.
Yeah.
So far, I'm one of the last standing soldiers.
My mom hasn't had it yet.
Yeah, my whole family got it a few weeks ago. Yeah.
There aren't many left.
Yep. Yeah, I know 4 or 5 people still.
Not many. So if you're one of them, good job. It's not easy. I got it flying on a plane.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have had it either if it wasn't for that flight.
I mean, what is a convention if not a constant plane flight?
Pretty much. For like 4 days straight.
Pretty much.
A bunch of germs that you're not used to fighting off and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, there you go. That is GDC 2023. And with that, it's time for... It's time for Name That Game, a little game we play here on GameFace where I show you 5 screenshots and you try to guess the name of the game before this guy, Matt Kyle. And he's good at it, so you gotta be on your game. A couple caveats before we get started. If you've won already this year, do not play. You can only win once every calendar year. And 2, we put the chat on slow mode, so you can only submit 1 message every 60 seconds. So don't just start spamming random game titles into the chat, because if you do that, you're going to type in 1 and you're going to have to wait 60 seconds for the next one, and by then I could have shown the next image that could have won you Name That Game. If you win a free game. It is a PC game, so if you either don't play PC games or you don't see yourself wanting to give a PC game to somebody, then please don't play. Let somebody win who will actually use the code. And again, once you have the code, it's yours. You can do whatever the hell you want with it. You can use it for yourself. You can give it away. But please, just out of concern for everybody else, if you're not going to play it and you can't think of anybody that you would give to use it, please just don't play. Let's let people win.
At least, tweet it or something.
Yeah.
Throw it out there somehow.
Yeah. Let people who can actually make use of the code win Name That Game. And with that, I think we're ready to get started. And the first image for Name That Game for episode 336 is live right now.
Yeah, that's a street.
And if anybody gets this, I'm going to freak out. Fire Native, thank you for Twitch Prime, by the way.
Watch Dogs 3.
Let's see, no guesses yet. Death Stranding, no. Mass Effect,
that's
no.
a good guess, though.
Yeah, it is a good guess. Mass Effect, no. Half-Life 2, no. MGS 2, no. Lots of 2s here. Jedi Fallen Order, no. Sleeping Dogs, no.
It looks too good to be Sleeping
Yeah.
Dogs.
Prey, no. That's a good guess. Spider-Man, nope. Also a good guess. Cyberpunk 2047, no. Half-Life 2, no. Assassin's Creed 3, no. All right, we're going to move on to image number 2. Mass Effect Andromeda, no. Destiny 2, no. Okay, we're moving to image 2. And here it is. Good hints there. Somebody might be able to get it from this. RE2 Remake, no. Usually people get it from stuff like this. That's showing a lot for this game. But no, not even any guesses. MGS5, no. I mean, I'm guessing we have a much smaller audience today. Counter-Strike, go. No. Good guess, Otaps. That is something that I would do. You're absolutely right. Grand Theft Auto 4, no. MGS5, no. Robinson the Journey, no. That's a pretty good guess, too. Destiny, no. Guardians of the Galaxy, no. Borderlands, no. Alpha Protocol, no. From Too Quick Capri. That came out of nowhere. Halo 3, no. Rage, no. We already did Rage, actually, in this.
Yeah, that's right.
Or we did Rage 2, actually.
We did Rage 2.
Yeah. Uncharted 4, no. Horizon Forbidden West, no. Killzone 3, no. Payday 2, no. Okay, it looks like we're going to make it to the third image. Hybrid Heaven, no. That's definitely not Hybrid Heaven. I'm going to use it someday, though, for sure. Okay, here is image 3. This will definitely give it away. Come on, you guys can get it from this. I know you can.
Okay, looks like, what, Halo Reach or something?
Not Halo Reach. Someone's going to get it from this, I know it. Halo Infinite, no. Metal Gear Solid Revengeance, no. Final Fantasy 15, no. Just Cause 2, no. 1X Solo, got it. Titanfall 2. There it is. I knew someone would get it from this. Because the choppers are all the same, and I knew someone would identify it. But only one person did. Everyone, all the other guesses that came in after his are incorrect. It is Titanfall 2. 1X Solo, you are our winner. Congratulations, buddy. Nice job. To get your free game, you can DM us here on Twitch. You can DM me on Twitter at Dinfire. You can DM Sifted on Twitter at Sifted Games. Or if you're on Sifted, which everyone should be and better be, you can DM me on Sifted at Shane. Any of those ways to get at me, I can get you your code. Congratulations once again. Here is one last round of applause. Okay. It's time for some Q&A if you guys have any questions for us. We went to you guys a bunch in this episode already, so maybe you've exhausted all your queries at this point. But we're here, and we will take your questions, if you got any. El Guapo 3385. Let me bring you up here, buddy. Any non-gaming podcasts that you listen to? I love Radio Lab with their esoteric topics in science, philosophy, and politics. Because I don't live back in Pennsylvania anymore, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring that up. I listen to a lot of Pittsburgh sports talk podcasts. So like the radio shows and stuff in Pittsburgh, and like all the local Pittsburgh sports journalists, like they all do podcasting. And then they put it up during the day, and then I work during the day, and then at night while I'm playing games, I will listen to Pittsburgh sports talk basically while I'm playing games. Do you listen to any other podcasts, Matt? Non-gaming ones?
Yeah, I mean, I listen to some board game ones. I listen to Pod Save America once in a while. I listen to It's Over Now. A lot of the podcasts I listen to are like limited. They're not like forever podcasts, but like Rachel Maddow just did one about it was basically about Nazi supporters in America in the 30s in the run-up to World War II, which is very interesting.
There were some.
Oh, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Like, very high up.
Like, oh, Hitler was such a bad... It's kind of like how some people now are, like, trying to say Putin isn't so bad. It's like, okay.
So that kind of thing. I also like Radio Lab sometimes. my tolerance for the sort of rather twee PBS kind of like, oh, we're going to talk about this thing, and then we're going to talk about this woman who grew onions in her front yard, and now we're going to talk about this jazz musician you've never heard of and will never hear of again. Like,
NPR type stuff.
Yeah, there's only so far that I have to be in the mood for that. But Radiolab's pretty good. Yeah. That's about it. I don't listen to a ton of podcast stuff. A lot of YouTube videos more than anything else.
Yeah, just the Pittsburgh Sports Talk stuff. Like they're obviously on air all day, so there's like 9 hours a day that I could listen to. I typically listen to like an hour and a half or something like that.
Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson sometimes. Like astronomy stuff is interesting to me.
Yeah, and during the football season, I listen to fantasy football podcasts sometimes. Like if I have a crucial game coming up and like I can't figure out who to start, like I'll listen to a couple podcasts to see if they can give me any insight that I didn't think of. But that's generally most of the podcasting stuff I listen to, mostly sports stuff really. Eth Demon, what is your most anticipated non-big budget game? For me, it's the Battle Network Legacy Collection. Oh wow. Interesting. I mean, we play games all the time that are lower budget that we like. I just really liked Bayonetta Origins. I thought that was really good, and that was a game that was on a lower budget. I just talked about Romancevania, which I didn't like quite as much, but still was a passable Metroidvania.
The most anticipated.
Yeah, but what's coming up? Like, I don't know, probably Hollow Knight Silksong. It's one of them.
If that makes
If it ever comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the Advance Wars collection, finally.
That's coming soon. Next month, I think.
Yeah, I think Sea of Stars is a big one. I think that's going to be talked about when it comes out. Maybe people aren't aware of it. I mean, I backed it on Kickstarter, so maybe I'm more aware of it than most. But like, I think that's one.
Yep. I mean, there's tons. There's just,
and there will be more. A lot of this stuff you find like the 9 Years of Shadows. Like I found that the day it came out. You don't know until Steam pushes it in your face, basically.
Yep. Sometimes that stuff works.
Or Rob Manuel sends you a text.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's not that's one of the fun things about like the lower budget or indie things is like there isn't a lot of anticipation. Sometimes you just discover this thing that you go, oh, that sounds really cool. Oh, it's out now?
Well, a lot of it's just word of mouth.
Yeah.
Something comes out and everyone starts talking about it, and then it becomes a thing and everyone jumps on it. So, I mean, if I had to pick one, it's probably the next Hollow Knight. Even though I wasn't a massive fan of the first Hollow Knight, I still really enjoyed it. I think it's probably the biggest indie game that's waiting to come out right now.
I mean, I would think so, unless you want to count Half-Life 3.
Yeah. But you would be an indie game at this point.
I mean, Valve is an independent company.
Commander Fett, has the weather finally calmed down in LA? Are you still getting a lot of rain and snow? Funny you should mention that, Commander Fett, because yesterday was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was back to LA yesterday, and the electric cuts out, which is bizarre. Usually it's weather-related when electric cuts out. And then today I wake up, it's pouring rain. It's been raining all day. It's right back to the way it was again.
I mean, it's sunny now.
Is it?
Yeah, it's pretty nice out now.
Yeah.
And it will remain so until, like, tonight.
But it's supposed to rain again tomorrow.
Rain again tonight and until tomorrow morning, and then it's supposed to be no rain for, like, a few weeks.
Then we go back to normal. So we're still in it, but it's about to finally go away.
And it's still cold for L.A.
Yeah. We had to run our heat last night, or we couldn't sleep. So, yeah. It's still insane. There's no other way to put it. It's insane. Gino Mike 1, have you guys heard of the musician Ren? I highly recommend the High Ren music video. No, I've never heard of him.
I don't know, Ren.
I know Ren and Stimpy. But now I found out that the creator of Ren and Stimpy is a terrible person.
Yes.
And so now I struggle to support Ren and Stimpy, even though those first 2 seasons were literally genius. It's the whole separate the art from the artist thing. It's tough sometimes. Cinetyke, The Last of Us Part 1 came to PC and has many issues. Crashes during shader compilation, jittery mouse camera movement, etc. How can this keep happening, especially after the TV show?
I mean, I don't think the people making the port care about the TV show.
It has nothing to do with it. Yeah. Unfortunately, you would hope that would have an impact, but it just doesn't.
I mean, it's another Sony port bad launch day, basically. Much as I'm looking forward to Last of Us playing, I'd like to play Last of Us again. Probably will do it on PC, but I haven't bought it yet because all those issues were shown. And I mean, I saw a guy who the shader compilation took something like 45 minutes, and I'm like, that's nuts. Like, how in the world is that? So I don't know, between this and Horizon, and I think Days Gone I don't know what's going on over there. And it seems to be Iron Galaxy. It seems to be the common thread through these. I'll just wait until it's fixed because it will be. Yeah. But yeah, like, I mean, you're certainly learning.
This is why I'm not a PC game that much.
Learning by repetition that it's not a good idea to buy these PlayStation ports on PC day one.
I mean, I mentioned, and if you guys maybe not have watched it, but we have published an Ask Shane Anything earlier today, and I mentioned that actually in the Ask Shane today. So
the best time to play a PC game version of something is about 6 months after it comes out.
Yeah, one of the questions was about Steam Deck, and I just basically said, like, I just don't like PC gaming that much in general because it's always stuff like this. There's always some weird thing, or like the drivers have to be updated just specifically for the game for your GPU. There's just always some weird thing, and that's why I just play consoles. It's much easier.
They look better and they run better, but you pay a price for that.
You have to work for it. Yeah.
There's there's always a trade-off for everything.
Yep. Minority Games, here's a good one. What IP would you like to see represented as a game that hasn't been already?
Is there anything?
I would like to see games based upon, like, bands, celebrities.
Oh, fuck that.
Like I'd like to play, like, a Kiss video game.
There was a Kiss video game. Kiss Psycho
back.
Circus.
Yeah.
The gem of the Dreamcast.
There was a Journey game for the Atari 2600,
right.
but you never even saw the band.
That was an arcade game, too.
Yeah. Like, I just think if you made games around people that other people care about.
In the arcade game, you did see the band. It was all them with their little heads.
Right, yeah.
And you had to get on the spaceship and go play it was basically based on their album covers.
Like, I would play a game based on Daft Punk. Like, I think that's a
I think that's just called Tron.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a territory that hasn't really been explored yet. We've seen Fortnite do stuff with musical artists. They just come in and do, like, a virtual concert or whatever.
I think the only thing you've seen in that regard has been, like, athletes, like Shaq Fu. Like, you had a little bit of that. Or, like, the Def Jam Battle for New York.
Fight for New York, yeah.
Like, where, like, they're hip-hop stars, but they're in, like, this fictional story about them in this, like, battle for...
I think there's a whole horizon waiting for that stuff. Like, I hate to say it, but remember the Kardashian, like, corny mobile game that blew up? Like, imagine if it's actually celebrities or cool people instead of the Kardashians.
I wonder if we wouldn't care, but I bet if you herded a bunch of Instagram influencer and YouTube influencers all into the same game and had them do some kind of, like, weird fictionalized quest for something, like basically made a Telltale game out of a bunch of influencers on an adventure together. I bet you would.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened already.
Pretty hard.
I think all kinds of stuff like that's going to come eventually. Minority Games is I'll answer 2 years in a row because this is a very simple one. Is E3 done for?
Getting there.
It feels like
it's certainly not going to be what we think of as E3 anymore.
This might be the last year.
I don't know what you do next year if everybody just pulls out and
then it's Jeff's game.
Yeah. Ball's in Jeff's court for sure next year.
Yep. Last one, Majora Tom. Do you see any games coming out the rest of 2023 that can match the RE4 remake in terms of quality?
Yeah, I listed like 6 of them.
I think there's a lot. We mentioned earlier that there's going to be ultimately like 6 or 7 legitimate Game of the Year candidates this year. It's really going to be a tough year to pick the Game of the Year. Estamont, football question. I'm a Steelers fan like you, but do you think Mahomes is the best ever? Good question. No. So you're talking to the wrong guy here. I'm old, and I grew up with the 70s Super Steelers. Like, to most Steelers fans, they didn't grow up watching those teams win. It's like this story that they hear from their parents. I lived through it. I was a little kid. To me, the Steelers, a lot like Kiss, were like superheroes when I was growing up. And, like, they did that. Like, if you would go to, like, Hills, which was the store that existed before Walmart, it was like the precursor to Walmart. You could go in there, and they would have, like, Steelers shirts of, like, Jack Lambert as a cartoon character. And, like, they did a great job of literally making the Steelers, like, superheroes back then.
I remember that kind of style with, like, they had the 49ers, too. It was like, they were, like, the screen-printed, like, like that weird sort of... Yeah, that weird... It was a caricature, but it was kind of realistic. Like, it looked like sort of something...
You knew who it was.
Yeah, it would be something that you'd see on, like, the cover of, like, a comic book or a trading card kind of thing.
Yeah. So, anyway, I grew up during that era of football. And I'll just be honest with you, like, I think the quarterbacks that played back then are better than any of the quarterbacks now. Because... There
was a larger-than-life quality...
It wasn't even that. It's that they were not protected. So go back and watch some footage of Terry Bradshaw from the Steelers. And I don't want to be a homer here, but Terry Bradshaw, they would pick him up and literally just dump him on his head over and over again. They'd clothesline him. They'd club him in the head. You can't do any of that anymore.
There's a reason NFL Blitz had suplexes, because that was about the only thing left not being done on the field.
You can't do that anymore. So you may say, oh, well, that's just the rules. Well, it all affects everything. Because if the quarterback's sitting back in the pocket and they know they're not going to get clubbed in the head, it gives them more confidence to stand in the pocket and step up and throw the ball. Like, these quarterbacks, Terry Bradshaw, Staubach from the Cowboys, like the Archie Manning, the original Manning, like all those guys were hard as hell. They were badasses. These quarterbacks now are a bunch of effing pansies. So, no, I don't think any of the quarterbacks now are the best. I don't think Brady is the best ever either. Brady wouldn't have lasted 3 years in the 70s NFL. He was a spindle when he came out of college. Literally go back and look at his combine photos. He was a rail. He would not have lasted 3 years. He would have broke him in half. So no.
I remember that conversation among my, my grandparents and about Montana.
Yeah.
That Montana was like this new like delicate breed of quarterback that could not have.
Too, though.
He did, but
got beat up too.
He did, but he didn't get beat up the way
as much as the 70s.
I mean, you said about Bradshaw. That was what my grandfather. My grandfather was a giant.
Dude, they were hard asses back then, man.
I remember people talking back then. Even my friends in school were like, you'd have the older kids who were like. They would bring up Bradshaw all the time, and we didn't know who that was because we were like.
The other thing too is Terry Bradshaw won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. He won back-to-back Super Bowls twice. So no, and I'm not saying Bradshaw's the greatest quarterback ever. I'm just saying the quarterbacks from that era, to me, are way better than the quarterbacks from today. So no, I would not.
At the very least, it makes it very difficult to compare in any kind of one-to-one.
It's not fair.
It's a different game.
It really is. And back then, steroids were legal. They weren't even outlawed from the game. So not only did you have crazy, powerful, strong guys, they were crazy. Like, go back and watch some of those games from the 70s. You could get away with biting people under the pile. You can't get away with any of that anymore because they have cameras everywhere and they're replaying everything. You can't get away with anything. The NFL was a completely different game in the 70s and 80s than it is now. So I tip the cap to the quarterbacks that played in that era because they were bad asses.
And there were some of the reasons that things are different now.
That's why. So. Yeah, that's exactly why. Yep. All right, that's it. We got through. Wouldn't it be funny if I said that and then the power went out? We made it through GameFace 336 on our second try. Thanks to all you guys who made it today to watch the live show. I really didn't think you would. I really thought there was going to be like no one in the chat today. So I really, really appreciate you guys making the effort to get here earlier and on a different day. Natural disasters. Without that, we'll be back on Tuesday for our usual time at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. If you're watching this show on YouTube and you'd like to help us, head to patreon.com/sifted. Drop us a pledge. If you're listening to this show on any of the podcast services and you'd like to help us, head to patreon.com/sifted and drop us a pledge. For just $4 a month, you get all our content early. For just $2 a month, you get Pactor Factor a week early. And if you can't afford to help us with any of that stuff, please help us with Twitch Prime. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can give us a free $2.50 a month for nothing, just because you're a subscriber. All the instructions for doing that are down below if you're watching this on YouTube. And, of course, before we go, I can't leave without saying how awesome LS Cream is. I just want to say how appreciative we are of them sponsoring our show. I think it's been pretty miraculous how this sponsorship has worked out great, I think, for both sides. I love promoting stuff that our audience creates. So if any of you guys run your own businesses or you do anything like that and you want to work out sponsorship with us, I'd love to do it. To me, that's the ideal sponsorship, helping the people who help me as much as I can. So go to creamls.com. There's a store locator there where you can go and buy LS Cream. It is absolutely delicious. It mixes so great with so many different drinks. Matt and I both love it. Support your fellow sifters. Support your fellow gamers. So again, we'll be back on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Until then, have yourselves an excellent week. GameFace is up and out.